Easy now. Be careful of their heads. This is crazy. Did they really clear the boss by themselves after we got knocked out? That would be the logical conclusion, but they don't have anything on them but dirt and a couple of scratches. The members of Immortal Moon were absolutely stunned by the current state of 3 of their members. After they woke up from their impromptu nap, they found a destroyed battlefield awaiting them along with a now empty gate. Confused about what could have put them all to sleep so easily, they went searching for answers, yet found more questions. Corpses and dungeon drops were literally everywhere, and all these valuable materials seemed to be completely uncared for. In a stretch of land almost 2 miles away, the group found 3 members of Immortal Moon sleeping nonchalantly on the ground, just as they had been before. The only difference being that this time there seemed to be nothing that could be done to wake the 3 of them. With minimal difficulty, the 3 of them were picked up by their fellow guild members and carried out like backpacks. This is weird. Mal's body feels really light. Opal had taken the responsibility of carrying her friend on her back, but she couldn't help but notice how it was significantly less difficult than it should have been. Well, you do have super strength after all. Yay, but this doesn't feel like me though. At well over 6 feet tall and with a body that was packed with lean and explosive muscles, Malachi should have weighed at least 200 pounds. As of now he just felt somewhat weightless. The girls finally crossed the gate threshold and entered back into their world. As of right now, it was around 9:27 p.m. and the sky was alight with stars. Alright, let's get them back to the Pla. Gasp. No more than a few seconds after passing through the gate, Bianca and Luna woke up and sucked in a needed breath of air. And a few moments later, Malachi's eyes flashed open as well. They even wake up together. That's cute. I think it might be a little creepy actually. Yeah, well, that is why you're single. Malachi groggily looked around and realized that he was back in the outside world. However, this didn't make any sense. What the hell is going on? Why are we back outside and why is Opal giving me a piggyback ride? Cause the gate is cleared and I'm the only one who was going to carry you without groping you? Malachi had never been drunk before, but he rubbed his head like he was having the worst hangover of his life. On his right side, Luna was on Nina's back and on his left Bianca was with another guild member. They didn't seem to be as confused as he was, but they looked just as tired. You 3 are awake. Moving through the closely knitted group was the leader of the world's #1 guild, Enzo. He wasn't sure whether or not he should make a beeline for Luna or Malachi first, but eventually he decided to address the both of them. What happened? What were you doing while we were all passed out? And what even happened to us in the first place? He usually wasn't one to pry, but he needed answers. Over 60 men and women had fainted at the same time in the same place without even knowing what put them there. To make things even more unbelievable, 3 had managed to somehow stay awake and defeat the remaining forces inside of the gate. Things like that don't just happen. No matter how tenacious or talented one might be. Malachi rubbed his head as he climbed down from Opal's back, desperately trying to recall the events that led up to his impromptu nap. It felt like the more he tried to remember, the greater a headache that he gave himself. But there was one thing that he remembered that was more important than any of that nonsense right now. Anna. Malachi's eyes went wide as he quickly located all of his guild members nearby. Girls, we're leaving now. He snapped his fingers and all 25 members of Immortal Moon sank into the shadows around them. Enzo stared gobsmacked at the place where Malachi and his guild members were standing a mere moment ago. Usually he was quite good at talking, but for some reason he felt like he was never able to get a word in edgewise when it came to that young man. He didn't typically like taking trips to America, but he felt that it may have been necessary this time around. Malachi sent the girls from the guild to their individual homes while he, Bianca, and Luna honed in on Anna's location. He was initially quite surprised when he realized where she was, and believed that he may have been mistaken. But as he appeared in his apartment, he found her, Aubrey, Serena, Joanne, and Aisha sitting on the couch, happily eating chicken wings and watching a big fight on TV. "You're back. Are you all right?" And Anna immediately wiped their faces of lingering wing sauce and ran up to hug him. oblivious of his stunned look. He kissed them both softly before he inevitably cupped Anna's face into his hands and started checking her face for wounds. But no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find anything. Her face was just as gorgeous and flawless as it always was. But I was so sure. Anna reveled in the feeling of Malachi's touch while inwardly worried about how he would break the news of what happened earlier today. About that. Promise me that you won't go running off and trying to kill anybody. I promise that I won't run, babe. I got it. I promise, love. Now tell me what happened. Anna took a deep breath as she gave Malachi a complete rundown of everything that had happened earlier in the day. She told them about the destruction of the world's top 5 guilds, as well as how they got attacked for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was rather proud of herself, so she told Mal about how she kept the bad guys apprehended with her powers until the authorities arrived to transport them to Tartarus. When the entire story was over with, Anna said nothing and she waited for Mal's reaction. She and all of his other girlfriends could feel his emotions go up and down like a turbulent roller coaster before he even said anything. I'm just glad you're good. Nothing else really matters to me. He pulled her in for a tight embrace that seemed like he was trying to absorb her flesh into his. No matter how hard he tried, he didn't believe he would ever forget the terror and panic that ran through his being when he thought he may have lost another person in his life. For a moment, he actually regretted asking his mother for her help getting the girls blessed. After all, if they didn't have powers then they also would never have been in danger today. But now that he was feeling significantly more clear-headed, he was glad that they had them. They were proving every day that they were strong and capable, and that they could take care of themselves without him running home to save them. He had to put more trust in them, especially since they were all he had. The guild's really been destroyed. Malachi looked back at Luna, who was scrolling through news updates on her phone with a shocked face. He couldn't imagine how hurt and taken aback she must have been, especially since she literally worked her fingers to the bone to get the place afloat. Releasing Anna, he immediately went to Luna's side and took her hand in his. I'm sorry. She smiled sheepishly at his gesture before tucking her phone away, realizing they had more pressing matters at the moment. Well, it's just a building and they can always be rebuilt. But for now, can you come to the bedroom with us? There's something we need to talk to you about. Malachi wasn't expecting for Luna to get over the destruction of her building so quickly, and nodded absent-mindedly as she pulled him by the hand to the bedroom. You guys aren't gonna speak to the rest of us? Just have a lovey-lovey reunion and go fuck? Serena screamed. We're not having sex, Serena, Luna reassured. We just need to talk with him about something private and we'll be back in a moment. None of the other girls looked like they believed that, and they watched the backs of all 5 of them slip into the bedroom and close the door. I give it 5 minutes before we start hearing moans, Aisha said annoyedly. I dunno, Luna seemed pretty pent up, so it might be 3? Guessed Aubrey. If I hear my mom so much as giggle I am going to stick my finger down my throat and throw up in front of their door. Joanne was the only one looking around at all 3 girls like they were saying something absurd. You girls are joking, right? They wouldn't do something like that with all of us here. Would they? The girls decided to exercise their Fifth Amendment right and not say anything about just how much they had heard living in this apartment. Past the ranch, blur cheese is superior, but sure. You're such an anarchist. As Joanne watched the girls continue eating wings like it was no big deal, she kept looking at the room down the hall out of the corner of her eye. She silently prayed that she would not hear any strange noises coming from that room, lest she never be able to look her daughter in the face ever again. Unsurprisingly, what Luna wanted to talk about was Mal's behavior in the gate. Malachi was a grown man and it wasn't often that she felt the need to advise him on anything, and yet today was one of those days. In the confines of the bedroom, she and Bianca discussed with all of them what happened when Malachi underwent his assumed anxiety attack inside the gate. They detailed it all, from the strange egg-like casing he sealed himself in, to the strange and frightening creature he became when he emerged. even how he'd almost taken a bite out of Enzo and the other guild members after knocking them all out with his pressure alone. But that wasn't the most surprising thing about their story. After becoming the Avatar of Night, Malachi was strong. However, he was in no way strong enough to clear a SSS-rated gate on his own in under 20 minutes. It was insane. Nonsensical even. He wouldn't have believed it if it weren't coming directly from the mouths of Luna and Bianca. "Did I hurt either of you?" he asked. Luna and Bianca both shook their heads no, but Bianca's cheeks admittedly became hot when he remembered how he pushed them down. She elected not to tell him about how they almost had their first time inside of a gate as she wanted to save him the shame of doing it and herself the embarrassment of admitting that she almost went through with it. "You didn't hurt us, you actually seemed to recognize us if only a little," Luna said. Malachi wondered if the reason why he recognized the girls was because they had a bit of his essence inside of them. And if they didn't? He shuddered to think of what could have happened to them. Before he could fall too deep into his self-loathing, Luna climbed on top of them and took his face in her hands. Her eyes were gentle and contained unparalleled concern and affection. "Darling, do you know why I love you so much? Nah." Still trying to figure that out, he admitted, "It is because you are the most gentle and loving person that I have ever known. No matter what you have suffered through in the past, you have always remained the same compassionate man." Just to make this moment a bit more tender, she pressed her lips against his forehead and let them linger there as she spoke to him. "I know that you love all of us so much that it hurts. And you should know that we all feel the same way about you. But we cannot be the reason why you lose yourself and become someone vengeful." Luna would never be able to forget the few moments before Malachi changed. She could literally feel his entire being drowning in worry, hatred, and negativity. That wasn't the man she loved. And it practically broke her heart to see him become someone like that. "You always say that you'll do whatever we ask of you." "Yes." "Then I need you to make all of us a promise right now. Name it." "No matter what happens, you cannot let the world harden your heart again. You are the most powerful man alive, so that means that you have to be that much more mindful of how you deal with adversity. I don't want you to become someone the world has to fear every time one of us gets a little scratch. I want you to always be the man who is unconditionally compassionate, and looks out for those in need above all." As of this moment, Luna may as well have been asking Mal to give her the moon. How could he not react if something happened to these girls? How was he supposed to just keep a smile on his face and keep moving? Not just them, but if anything happened to his sister, or his best friends, or even one of the other girls at the guild, he felt like would go absolutely ballistic. And who could blame him? He was already so tired of loss that the slightest danger aimed at someone he loved was enough to send him off the deep end. But the more he thought about it, he realized that therein lay her point. Malachi almost ate people today. Innocent, kind people who had never done a single thing to him were almost taking up permanent residence inside his stomach, and he didn't even remember it. All because he was overwhelmed with the fear that he might lose Anna, and a rage that wanted to make the whole world pay for her loss. That wasn't healthy. Luna was right, he had to get control of himself before another incident like this took place in the future, and he destroyed the world before the other nightmares even got a chance to. At his core, he was a good person who didn't want to cause any harm. It wasn't in his character, and he couldn't let the world change that about him. No matter what obstacles he may end up facing. Looking around, he could see Bianca, and Luna all giving him the same concerned eyes. Even though Luna had been the only one talking this whole time, it was clear that they all felt the same way as her. Malachi fell backwards onto his bed and let his arms flop to his side lazily. There was a strange sense of relief in his chest, like a weight had just been removed. Maybe it was because now, he knew exactly what he had to do. "I won't promise you that I would just be the same if anything happened to any of you, 'cause I know that would be a lie. But I can at least promise you that I won't be that monster again. But I can promise you that I'll work more on getting these new emotions under control, so that I'll always be able to pick myself back up." Visible relief could be seen on Luna and all the girls' faces. Malachi always kept the promises with them no matter how absurd they may have been. And now, They were more than confident that this one would be much the same. His bold promise caused all the girls to promptly dive on top of him and smother his face with kisses. It was a very sweet moment, and it reaffirmed his commitment to keeping the girls happy by not losing himself. Somewhere deep inside, there was a perfect balance that he need only work to find. But if it meant these girls would keep smiling, he would work as hard as he needed to. That night, after the group coming back from the gate got showered and changed, they came out to join the rest of the guests in the living room. There were a medley of strange looks being thrown their way, almost as if they couldn't believe they didn't hear any moaning coming from their room. The rest of the night was spent in good spirits and community, with lots of laughter and jokes being thrown out casually, along with a few shared stories for Joanne, who became something of a newcomer to the group. But despite that, Mal couldn't figure out why he felt like he was forgetting something. This feeling persisted all the way through the dead of night, where he and the girls were lying in bed trying to go to sleep. After all of the girls were snoring lightly, he sat up on the bed when he finally remembered the guests he'd had in storage. Fuck Morgan. Slipping out of bed, he started pulling on his clothes in the darkness while trying not to make a sound. However, Siz's eyes flashed open not long after he started getting dressed, and she also pulled herself out of bed. "Are you going somewhere, honey?" she whispered. "Yeah, I have something that I sort of need to deal with." Sis did not ask any further questions and moved towards her dresser, where she also started to get dressed as quietly as possible. "What are you doing, love?" "Get back in bed. I'll be back in a few minutes." "I want to come with you." Malachi had literally just come back from an entirely different world while she spent all day worrying about him. She didn't want to be apart from him anymore if she didn't absolutely have to. Besides, a part of her blessing from hypnose meant that she didn't actually require sleep. It was more like a luxury that helped her to relax and pass the time when it was dark. Malachi stared at her back as she pulled a sweater and jogging pants over her body and let out a defeated sigh. He already knew that there was no changing her mind, so he thought of a way to have a bit of fun while the world around them was still sleeping. "Alright then, since we're going out, let's make it a little date night." Finally finished getting ready, she showed him the enchanting smile of a mature woman as she took his hand in hers. "That sounds very nice." "Where are we going?" Mal pulled on a black hoodie over his bare chest and zipped it up halfway before taking his girlfriend's hand in his. "I have to run an errand first, but afterwards, we can go wherever you want." Currently, Malachi and Sis were standing side by side in the backyard of Morgan's multi-million-dollar mansion. He held out his hand and a portal of darkness opened up in the sky, and a woman fell out onto her butt. "Ow! You could be a little more gentle with me, don't you think so, handsome?" Malachi suddenly felt Sis's grip on his hand tighten to an unfunny degree. He always forgot how strong she was now that she was blessed, but this was a very loud and dangerous reminder. Glancing at her, he could see her staring holes into his head, wearing a smile that was not a smile on her face. "Honey? Who is this bitch?" "Honey? Who is this bitch?" Malachi found Sis's jealous look to be incredibly sexy, and he was unsure of just how far he should let this act of hers persist. Evidently, he did not do a very good job of concealing his thoughts as Sis's cheeks suddenly turned pink and she covered up her breasts in a protective manner. "I am not having sex with you anymore if you don't tell me." "You don't even sound like you believe that." "Malachi." Alright. Malachi pulled the mature beauty back into his arms and ignored her look of murderous rage. "This is... Actually, I don't know who the hell she is." "I'm Nadine," she said happily. "Don't care," Malachi continued. "But she's a vampire who enslaved Morgan in the dungeon and she had some shady demands. I would have dealt with her back then, but I thought Anna was hurt and I didn't have the time, so I stuck her in the Shadow Realm." "And are you referring to your storage space as the Shadow Realm now?" Sis asked accusingly. "Yay. You don't like it?" "It's fine, but I know you stole it from that silly card game that you and Aisha like." "Can you prove that?" "Foo, I guess not." Malachi nodded, grateful that his secret was still safe and sound within the confines of his mind. "Anyway, she made it seem like just killing her wouldn't help free him, so I had to take her with me." Sis felt like she was nursing a migraine and rubbed her head like she was trying to wipe away years of exhaustion. "Honey, Have you stopped to consider how absurd it is that you walked out of a dungeon with a monster instead of any drops? No, the drops would be collected and divided before they were sent to a warehouse owned by Luna, and it wasn't really like he had taken Nadine because he wanted to keep her as a pet. Why was that so absurd? Seemed to find his look of genuine confusion just the slightest bit cute, and she quickly forgot why she was feeling upset. But as soon as she looked at the bewitching vampire for a second time, she quickly remembered the reason why. She was just too pretty and threatening. Nadine hadn't even really said anything yet, and already didn't like her. Nadine finally picked herself up from the ground and dusted off her large bottom. You know, if she's not going to have sex with you, I am more than interested. Now really didn't like her. She held Malaki a bit more possessively as she scowled at the beauty from another world. Nadine smirked as she saw this and dragged her gaze up and down both of their bodies. Don't be like that. We can share him. I can even. Can you stop fucking with me and just tell me what you want? All that Malaki cared about was getting Morgan from underneath this woman's thumb. Anything else was unnecessary and quite frankly a real headache. He was just glad that Anna wasn't here. With her short temper and rampant jealousy, she would have started beating this bitch already. Nadine pouted slightly as if she couldn't believe she was failing to seduce the two of them. What? You don't like me? You compelled a friend of mine and made him murder innocent people. The fuck do you think? Yeah, well, you and your friends probably murdered my friends and husband, judging by the fact that you're still standing here, so can't we just call it even? Pushing her luck, Nadine inched closer to Malaki and placed her hand on his chest. Seconds before it was swatted away by she felt something criminally unusual from within his body. You don't have a heartbeat. What exactly are you? Ignoring her, Malaki remained stone-faced and focused on rescuing Morgan. I want you to let him go. Smirking, Nadine folded her arms across her large chest. And I will, as long as you marry me. The way that Malance's mouths fell open at the exact same time was utterly comical. Neither of them really knew what to say to Nadine's proposal that came completely out of left field. All they could do was stare at her like she'd grown a second head. You're insane. You're out of your rabbit-ass mind. The two of you are so mean. Nadine cried. You killed my old husband, so now you should be my new one. That's completely fair. The hell it is. Why? 'Cause you're blackmailing him. Reasoned. I prefer to think of it as being a shrewd negotiator though. I couldn't give a fuck what you prefer. All of this yelling had alerted the attentions the actual residents of this home. Crystal and Emilia were both in silk robes and nightgowns with their hair tied up like they were ready for bed. Their eyes were red and puffy like they'd been crying a lot, and they looked so exhausted like they had lost years off their life force in one night. Malaki. Who are these women and why are you in our backyard? Emilia asked. About that. It took Mal a total of 5 minutes to tell Morgan's wives everything about why he was there and that he wasn't just with random women. In retrospect, he should have introduced first instead of Nadine, because as soon as he told them about the pale blonde woman they lunged at her like they were going to kill her. You bitch. Give us our husband back. Malaki had to catch the girls with his telekinesis and held them in the air so that they didn't get themselves killed, but that didn't stop them from clawing at her like they were going to tear her eyes out. Earlier today, they received a notice that Morgan was reported missing inside the dungeon after going crazy and attacking everyone. Obviously they feared the worst, and the two of them had spent the entire night crying their little hearts out at the loss of the man they loved. And now they were learning that their beloved Morgan wasn't dead, just chilling in the Shadow Realm while Mal tried to get his brain unscrewed by a ditzy vampire. But now, he had an entirely different ordeal on his hands. One that came in the form of controlling Morgan's hot-headed wives who were unafraid of the charming monster. How could you do that to him? I'll beat you with a fucking coat hanger. Mal smiled wryly as he tried to prevent these nice women from getting themselves killed by a SSS-rated monster. Hey ladies, can the two of you just blood-sucking bitch, dirty hoe? Sighing in defeat, Malaki gave a small nudge as a signal for her to take over. Her eyes glowed silver for a few seconds, and Emilia and Crystal's bodies both started to become heavy. When they were snoring lightly in the air, Malaki gave her a grateful kiss on the cheek and butt squeeze before returning his focus towards Nadine. Surprisingly, she didn't seem to be bothered by the insults of the two, and she was even pinching their cheeks like she found them rather cute. These two are so fiery. I can tell that they are good wives. Looking back at Malachi, she flashed him a smile that would have made most men weak in the knees. I could be as good of a wife to you as they are to their husband. Does that truly sound so bad? Yes. Oh come on. Malachi would not change his mind for anything in the world. He didn't have eyes for any women other than the ones he already had, least of all a little vampire who could wreak all kinds of havoc on this world. Even now, he was silently thinking up ways to kill her after he freed Morgan. Sunlight was a nice choice, but he didn't really like it either, so he silently decided to choke her to death with the leftover garlic parmesan wings they had at home. Assuming that those myths actually worked, that is. Nadine seemed to recognize that she wasn't getting anywhere and sat cross-legged on the ground as she began to think up a new strategy. He really seems like he has no interest in me. That makes him even more perfect. Those eyes that are filled with contempt are so different from that other man's. I just have to have him. I have to think of a new way to play this, one that guarantees that he'll let me live long enough to woo him and get into his pants. Scratching her head, she racked her brain for several seconds as she tried to think of any possible method that would result in her desired outcome. After thinking hard enough for smoke to come out of her ears, she finally seemed to reach a conclusion that caused her to let out a happy giggle. Standing back up, she started inching closer to Malachi once again. "All right then, handsome, we don't have to get married right now." "Not ever." Sure, she said with a shrug. "I have something that might be even better in mind for us. Would you like to hear it?" A fiery giant appeared on the green grass within Morgan's backyard, and blinked its eyes several times as it tried to get used to the sensation of light in its eyes. Looking up, he found a handsome young man with a rich brown skin and dreadlocks standing beside an equally attractive older woman with a gentle aura. Also standing outside were his two wives, who were staring at him with overjoyed eyes. "Morgan, darling." Both Crystal and Emilia rushed to tackle their husband as soon as they saw him up and alert. This joyful reunion was wonderful enough to bring tears to the eyes of even the most stone-hearted of men. Morgan didn't seem to know why his wives were so emotional over seeing him, but he returned their embraces nonetheless. Finally, he remembered his last moments in the gate before he spent hours in that world of darkness. Falling to his knees, his hands immediately went to his head as he became overwhelmed with grief. Logan. By the gods, what have I done? He could still remember the feeling of holding their lives in his hands as he engulfed all three of their bodies in smoldering flame, the likes of which they had no hope to survive in. That was no mere dream. He'd truly killed those men. Emilia and Crystal also came to his side, and tried to reassure him that he'd done nothing wrong. "Morgan, it wasn't your fault." "That's right. Malachi told us everything already, and we know that you were under a vampire's control." Morgan didn't really seem as if his guilt had been alleviated by the words of his wives, no matter how much they consoled him. He looked up at Malachi like he was still searching for answers. "That monster, what happened to it? How many did we lose inside the gate?" Malachi shook his head and took a knee before Morgan and placed his hand on his shoulder. "Please man, don't worry about that right now. You can look at the reports and stuff after you've rested and gotten yourself together." Mal immediately stood up, as this situation wasn't one that he was willing to compromise on. He went back towards us and took her hand while waving the three of them goodbye. "Lad." Looking back over his shoulder, Malachi was having difficulty meeting Morgan's eyes. Almost as if he knew what he was going to ask. "That vampire? You killed her?" "Yes. She'll never hurt anybody ever again." "Thank you, lad. You're a good man." For the first time ever, Morgan saw a strange and uncomfortable smile cross Malachi's face. Unfortunately, he lost the chance to ask him about it when the couple sank into the ground and vanished from his backyard. And Malachi ended up on a beach in their dead of night. It wasn't really a planned decision, but this was the space that seemed to call out to them the most. The mood wasn't necessarily tense, but neither of them were saying anything. Was continuously watching Malachi out of the corner of his eye, and monitoring his behavior. As one might have guessed, he really didn't kill the vampire that was responsible for controlling Morgan. She proposed an alternative to marriage that would not only ensure that he couldn't kill her, but that she could not go against his wishes either. And the proof of this pact was in the form of an ancient black bracelet that was now bound to his left wrist. After making the pact, Nadine flew off somewhere into the night, claiming that she wanted to see a bit of what this new world had to offer. And after making her promise not to bite, compel, or harm anyone, Malachi allowed her to go. More like he was elated to see her leave so that he could forget about her existence for a while. She claimed that she would be able to find him no matter where he went due to the bracelet and flew away, though not before she compelled Crystal and Emilia to forget that they ever saw her. Figured that Malachi was feeling guilty about lying to his mentor and letting a monster walk free. But she had to find a way to let him know that there was nothing that he could have done to change the outcome of this situation. Honey, you couldn't have. I love you. I know that you wait. Pardon? Chuckling, Malachi pulled his girlfriend deeper into his arms and stole her lips with a kiss. When they separated, he rested his hands on her face lightly and stared into her infinitely warm eyes. You know, when Nadine started saying all that shit about wanting to marry me, I was really pissed off. You better have been. Said seriously. I would strangle you if you married some random woman before me. Chuckling, Malachi ignored her remark. Can't have that. So why don't you marry me then? Froze up like a deer in headlights and Malachi felt her whole body become tense. Don't joke like that, honey, she said shyly. Oh, it hurts that you think I joke about something like this. Love. Malachi pushed onto the sandy beach and let his body loom over hers. I want to marry you. Do you still think I'm joking? Maybe. Malachi lifted up his hand and literally pulled off one of his own fingers. He manipulated his detached limb and changed it into a simple but captivating black band with a little galaxy inside. Whence was the ring being held out in front of her? Her eyes started to water and her hands covered her mouth. I hope you can see how serious I am now. Why would you? Because I adore you. You're a part of the reason why my life has changed around completely and every day we spend together feels better than the next. You advise me, you nurture me, you support me. I probably wouldn't be half the man I am now without you standing at my side every day. I want you to be my wife. So I'll ask you, will you marry me? Malachi didn't get an answer to his question. Instead he had his face forcefully grabbed by the woman he'd just proposed to and she brought her lips towards his. The two of them locked their bodies together as they rolled on top of each other in the sand, with neither one of them saying a single word. Their lips didn't separate until around 5 minutes later, and Mal finally wiped away the tears running down her face. Are you crying because I'm getting rejected or, you idiot? Of course not. She was so overwhelmed with emotion that tears of joy were falling from her face. Why, you can't change your mind, okay? Even if we're hundreds of years older or you meet some really pretty immortal or you're silly. Malachi took his hand in his and slid the ring onto the appropriate finger. As soon as it was around her digit, it adjusted to fit her perfectly. I will love you in 500 years just as much as I do today. You will never be able to run me away, and nothing will ever come between us, he said honestly. No matter how long she looked at her new ring, she couldn't take her eyes off of it. Besides her daughter, it was easily the most beautiful gift she'd ever received. Ah, that's right, she realized. She gave Malachi a mischievous smile as she prodded him in the midsection playfully. Do you know what this means, honey? You'll really be Serena's stepfather now, she said excitedly. Malachi made a crestfallen look as he stared up into the sky hopelessly. No. Rolled her eyes at his dramatic gesture and started to let her hands wander up the length of his body. Honey, do you think we can stay out tonight? I don't want to go home just yet. Malachi quickly forgot all about his current plight as he heard his fiancée copyright's sultry tone. Without wasting another second, he started expanding his senses to start searching for nearby hotel rooms. It was around 6 a.m. the next day when Luna's pink eyes flashed open. Perhaps due to her role as a guild master, she had become used to waking up at this time and now did so out of instinct. But once she remembered that she had no more building to go to, she contemplated lying back down. Malachi and Sue weren't in the bed, but Bianca and Anna were both still sleeping cutely side by side each other. She almost joined them, but something within her mind told her it'd be best to check her phone before she did so. As always, she had quite a few text messages from some people that she couldn't care less about, and more than a few emails from annoying bootlickers. But there was one message she received that made her sit up. The sender, dubbed POTUS, had sent her one simple message that nearly made her head explode. She immediately jumped out of the bed and went into the still empty living room, where she dialed the number without hesitating. It took only 3 rings before the line connected and the voice of an older man played over the phone. "Miss Moon, to what do I owe there?" "Cut the shit," Luna said coldly. Right now, she was in no mood for pleasantries, especially not after what she'd been told. "What the hell do you mean you won't be allocating our guild the drops from the gate?" she asked dangerously. On the other line, the president fell silent for a few moments as he loosened his tie just a bit. "It is as I've stated over the phone. In light of certain world events, the U.10 has unanimously decided to start the collection of resources found inside the gate for use by the world's military. And I presume this world event you're referring to is the revelation of Arya's faction, of which you all already knew about?" Luna asked pointedly. The silence on the other line was nearly overwhelming and gave her the only response she needed. "You cannot just take the guild's resources that we fought on the front lines for. If you want more resources to outfit your armies, then you and every other power in the world should put your lives on the line and collect them yourselves. But what my guild members and I have collected belongs to us, and I expect it to be returned. You have no right to take them, so find some other way to appease the scared hearts of your voters." The president let out a deep sigh containing an entire presidential term of exhaustion. "Honestly, Miss Autumn, I am not obligated to. Under the agreement between your guild and the United States government, you are obligated to hand over any magical devices your group is in possession of that might aid against a national emergency level threat. And a blessed terrorist group certainly qualifies." Luna clenched her fists so hard that her knuckles had started to crack audibly. It was exactly as Malachi had predicted. The world's attitude toward the blessed was starting to change, and this was likely only the start. From here on, demands were likely to get more and more irrational as an attempt to appease humans of their fear. But Luna was not interested in playing these games. "Is that so? Then I suppose that you've just made my decision a lot easier then. As of now, Immortal Moon is officially disbanded," she said coldly. The president immediately leapt up from his seat and started to break out in a sweat. "Miss Autumn, what do you mean by this? If this is a joke, I assure you that it is no such thing. I suppose you could say that the last dungeon run has really put things into perspective for me, and I'm honestly a bit tired. I have more money than I could ever spend in 20 lifetimes, good friends the likes of which I've never had before, and a wonderful man who loves me to pieces. I don't need to waste my life doing paperwork, do I? Then just retire and pass down the guild to someone under you. But to disband it completely is." "Nah, I'll disband it." Miss Autumn. Luna wasn't stupid. She knew exactly why the president was trying to prevent her from disbanding the guild. After the last dungeon run, the top 5 guilds were in complete disarray. The leaders of Dead Sea and Platinum Scale had both been killed, and by the leader of Ragnarok no less. Morgan Greed had also conveniently gone missing and wasn't available for comment, but last known reports say he was with Malachi Saint, who was damn near impossible to track since he just blipped all over the goddamn place. America had been able to remain in the top of the world's food chain because 4 of the world's top 5 guilds were based here, with 2 guild leaders dead, 1 missing, and another one going to disband her guild entirely. Their ranking was going to slip downwards like fat kids at a water park. That couldn't happen. "Why you being irrational? Simply because you do not wish to give up a few trinkets does not mean that you can try your back on your crown." "Oh, seems like I'm getting another call, Mr. President. Please do not contact me again. Miss Autumn." Without waiting another second, Luna hung up the phone and blocked the number, although she was sure that it wouldn't stop him from trying to persuade her. She had to make things official quickly so that there would be nothing that he could do about it. Which meant she had to talk to the girls first. Greek. Out of the corner of her eyes, Luna saw the young Serena peeking at her through her room. Feel like I just heard a whole bunch of stuff that I don't really make enough money to hear. Luna chuckled softly and sat on the couch before patting the seat beside her. The pink-haired girl slipped out of the room and joined her shyly. The two of them kicked their feet up on the coffee table and Luna started to explain what Serena had just heard. I don't know if you're worried about something, but you need not be. Disbanding the guild will not have any negative effect on our lives in the future. Over time, Serena had come to look at Luna as something of a real aunt. Therefore she was more than comfortable enough to rest her head on her shoulder. You sure about that? Chuckling, Luna rested her head gently atop Serena's. Yes, I am. I have been preparing for something like this for quite a while now. I think it will greatly benefit us all this way. Serena still seemed to be bothered by something and Luna took her hand, give it a reassuring squeeze. What's wrong? Disappointed you won't get to be rich and famous? Are you kidding? Have you seen my new face and body? I'll make bread even if I'm not in a guild, she said cheekily. Luna laughed at Serena's bold confidence and she felt her mood improving already. By the way, Mal and your mother weren't in bed this morning when I woke up. You didn't hear them leave, did you? No, but hold on. Serena pulled out her phone and went to her mother's contact before she started tracking her device. Does your mother know that you have her location? Luna asked suspiciously. Nope. I just turned it on one night a few years ago when she started working late since I didn't want her to get kidnapped or anything. Ain't I a good daughter? Luna wondered how exactly she should answer that question since Serena had technically invaded her mother's privacy. She wondered if she should admonish her even just a tiny bit once his location finally finished loading. Gross. Looks like they got a hotel room in Sandestin. Did you guys get tired of washing your own sperm-soaked sheets? When Serena didn't receive a response, she looked up and found Luna staring at her phone with a dangerous glint in her eyes. Honestly, why are all of Mal's girlfriends so crazy? It's like he fucks their brain or something. She thought exhaustedly. Oh, so they went to a hotel all alone without us. That's fine. See if I have sex with them ever again. Auntie, you don't even sound like you believe that, Serena muttered. Luna rolled her eyes and bit her lip in jealousy and annoyance. Just wait until they come home. I can't wait to hear what excuse they have for ditching us to spend the night out. In a presidential suite 2 hours away, the new fiancé Tilda Copyright S hadn't gotten a wink of sleep. With Malachi's inexhaustible energy and his new blessed physiology, the two's bodies were inseparable. They had spent the entire night in all of their favorite positions, reaffirming their love for each other with nothing but their bodies. The entire bed was already sopping wet, so they had switched to the floor instead. On his knees, Malachi cupped his butt in his hands and bounced her body up and down as she locked her legs around his waist. The two of them hadn't spoken to each other in hours. Not with their mouths at least. While their lips and tongue were firmly intertwined with each other, their minds were busy proclaiming their oaths to each other, over and over again. Enough times that it would have been easy to go insane from the constant stream of obsessively possessive words. And in a way, it can be said that they did. Through every exchanged moan into his mouth and word of devotion streamed into his mind, Malachi could feel his passion and love for him increasing by leaps and bounds, which in turn further fueled everything he felt for her. If before their love was as unbreakable as a titanium board, it was now as expansive as the universe itself. Among heaven, earth or hell, there existed no force strong enough to separate them. Malachi felt spiked his lip a little bit harder than normal and knew that she was about to come again. Increasing the pace at which he bounced her atop him, finally lost her ability to form coherent thought as she had her hardest orgasm of the night. A shrill scream finally escaped her mouth that delighted Malachi's ears beyond any calculable measure, and a fierce trembling assailed her body. Malachi still had so much love to give and so much that he needed to express, so he wasn't intending on letting her go just yet. Don't pass out on me yet, love. I need a break, honey. Sorry, love. I just don't think I can let you. Knock, knock. Knock. Malachi and his steamy and intimate celebration was interrupted by an annoying series of knocks at the door. A voice played from the other side, one of a ditzy and equally friendly vampire. Hey, I heard a big scream just now, so are you guys done yet? Or can I come join you, Tilda? Malachi unconsciously squeezed his fiancée Tilda copyright a bit tighter when he heard Nadine's voice coming from outside. Honestly, he'd forgotten all about the friendly otherworld vampire he'd inexplicably collected, and he was already wishing it had stayed that way. Begrudgingly, he stood up and carried to the bed and wrapped her in the driest sheets he could find. Pulling back on his boxers and sweatpants, Malachi opened the door and allowed a blonde-haired rocket to fly through. Nadine was like some kind of exotic bloodhound, excitedly sniffing the air like she was trying to engrave the scent into her memory. On the ground and in the bed, she found so many huge wet spots that they almost looked like puddles, and strange drops of what appeared to be black jelly. Or maybe. Nadine bent down and stuck her fingers into the mysterious black substance. Just before she could bring it to her lips, Malachi reflexively grabbed her wrist and prevented her from doing so. What are you doing? Don't be gross. I take that to mean this is what I think it is. You know what it is and you're still trying to eat it off the floor? I would love to get some the proper way. This time, Malachi didn't even need to say anything as hurled a pillow at the blonde woman's head. Nadine seemed relatively unbothered and she gave his fiancée Tilda copyright a disappointed look. Don't be greedy, human. You should learn to share a bit. I'm already sharing with 3 other women and there won't be a 4th. Eh? Why? Is there something wrong with me? Everything. Nadine puffed out her cheeks in irritation and folded her arms. The two of you really know how to make a girl feel insecure. Given that you literally forced yourself into our lives, I think we might be even. Malachi reminded. Forced feels like a very strong word. The hell it does. Breezing past the vampire, he lay on the bed besides and rubbed the irritation out of his eyes. Nadine kneeled at the foot of the bed and placed her head in both of her hands. Come on now. Surely you must see some benefit to having me around. I'm quite powerful, you know. I'm sure you are. The longer Mal thought about it, he realized that Nadine may have been a tiny bit right. There were things that he wanted to know about after all, so maybe this was the perfect time to learn. Nadine, why are gates showing up in this world? Also curiously looked at her for the answer, and to their surprise she actually seemed like she was going to be helpful. Isn't it obvious? If we don't soften you mortals up before those abominations come calling, then we die alongside you. Or I suppose, saying that we die would be the wrong way to put it. But our lives would cease to become our own. What do you mean? You've probably seen them by now. The mindless drones inside of the gates that you call them. Monsters that wear the shells of who they used to be as they act on an endless appetite for destruction. They fought against them at first too, and now that is the fate they have received. Living hollow lives, servicing the ones who killed them to bring more worlds underneath its leadership. Malachi thought back to how certain monsters behaved in gates. While there were some who behaved relatively normally and even spoke in some kind of unknown languages, the bulk of them did not. They were just like rabid animals with dead eyes who had a sole interest in killing. No one ever discovered the reason why, until now, that is. Why don't they just come and do it themselves instead of sending all of you? Asked curiously. This time, Nadine shrugged as if she didn't know the answer to that either. Generally, powerful creatures like that don't get to run around unchecked no matter what world they originate from. So it's possible that they have some sort of restriction that's buying you a few more seconds of breath. Whatever it was, Malachi was grateful for the extra time it brought. If they hadn't had it, the human race likely would have perished already, along with most of the hires. These overlords of yours, Mal begin. They're called nightmares, right? Nadine seemed surprised that Mal already knew that, and she attributed his intelligence to the fact that he was special. As far as what exactly made him that way, she wasn't sure yet. Yes, that's correct. They're called. Nadine's slender hand suddenly went to her nose and she examined it carefully. On her finger, she found a trail of dark blood running from her nose and her eyes went wide. What was I talking about? Malachi swatched as the bewitching vampire's eyes rolled into the back of her head and she fell onto the floor hard. Oh, gods. Nadine. He immediately went to her side and checked for a pulse before realizing that she was fine. just unconscious. He relaxed for a moment before he felt himself becoming increasingly wary of these coming enemies. If they could harm Nadine all the way in this world where they had no real foothold, then just how terrible were they really? And when the inevitable day came that he and his girls had to face that threat, would they survive that terrible collision? It was a sobering thought to think about. Malachi didn't need to worry about fighting the nightmares, because the way things looked now, he wouldn't even live long enough to see the first one step onto this world. In what was probably his dumbest decision ever, he appeared in the living room of his apartment while holding hands and with Nadine's sleeping body over his shoulder. On the couch, his other 3 girlfriends were all waiting for him, and it was looking like they were going to tear his head off his body. They were already mad at Mal for ditching them, but now they were even more upset to see him show up with another woman's ass so close to his face. Who the fuck is that? Anna asked dangerously. Her knuckles were clenched. Bianca was starting to warm up the room with her body temperature, and Luna was staring at him with an icy gaze that could terrify a mortal soul. Malachi could feel their rampant jealousy being thrown at him without holding back in the slightest. He had never been so turned on in his life. Girls, that's Nadine, explained. She's okay. Sorta. You're not off the hook either, Missy, Luna said coldly. How could you guys just ditch us to go and spend the night in a hotel? Bianca asked. I can literally smell you two all over each other. I'm so fucking jealous. Anna muttered, smiled wryly as she waved away their complaints. It really wasn't planned and I'm sorry we didn't include you girls. But look. Held up her hand and showed the 3 girls her new ring that was courtesy of Mal's own body. Is that? Yes. We're getting married, she screamed excitedly. Bianca, Kaya, oh my god. Anna, no way. No way. Luna, I get to be your maid of honor, right? We talked about this and you promised. In the blink of an eye, all 3 girls had pushed Mal aside and started jumping up and down, clearly happy for Surprisingly, Mal expected them to feel just a bit jealous of her, but the longer he searched their minds, he couldn't find anything like that. There was only pure and unbridled joy for the one they saw as their best friend and sister. It was unbelievably touching, and no one was more grateful for this beautiful scene than the man who loved them all equally. One day, they would all be his wives in body and soul. And he couldn't wait for that moment. What's with all the screaming? Is everything okay? Not only Serena, but Aubrey and Aisha had come out of their rooms as well, both looking around for the source of the panic. They're getting married. Serena, no. Aubrey, oh my god, congratulations. Aisha, you don't have any guy friends, so I get to be your best man, right? We talked about this. While Aubrey picked Serena up from the floor so that they could congratulate her mother, Aisha went to embrace Malachi. She did not ask why there was some strange woman on his shoulder, and instead the two merely exchanged a congratulatory fist bump. And just so you know, you have my blessing, so stop wasting time and become my sister for real, he whispered. Aisha blushed as she looked at Aubrey out of the corner of her eye. Shut up. Don't rush me. Whatever, scrub. Eventually, all of the yelling woke up another occupant in the home who had been sleeping peacefully draped over Mal's shoulder. Ugh, my head. Why is it so loud in here? Almost immediately, Mal felt a shiver run down his spine. With how loose Nadine's mouth could be, he was almost certain she was about to ruin the feel-good mood in the atmosphere. Nadine slid down from Malachi's back as she rubbed the sleep out of her eyes. Once she saw the room full of people staring at her, she waved and introduced herself politely. Oh hello. Nice to meet all of you, she said with a yawn. Instead of responding to her, the eyes of almost everyone in the room drifted towards Malachi and waited for him to explain this situation. The young man simply smiled wryly as he gave the woman beside him a harmless pat on the head. This is a bit of luggage I had to bring back from the gate. Like said. Why am I luggage? Nadine cried. Cause you're a hassle. Anyway, you are so mean to me. While the pair of them were arguing, Bianca began to feel like she'd seen this woman somewhere before. Finally, she started to remember. It was much darker back then, but there was no mistaking that it was her. She almost didn't recognize her due to her different clothes, but now she was absolutely sure of it. You're that vampire from the gate. My name's Nadine, Pleased to meet you, dearie. As soon as Serena heard the word vampire, she quickly ran to the fridge and opened it. Rustling through its contents, she pulled out a plastic bag containing leftover chicken wings from the night before and immediately unzipped it. Team Jacob, bitch. What? With the accuracy of an MLB-level pitcher, Serena started hurling garlic parmesan wings at Nadine like she was trying to take her head off. Unfortunately for her, she vastly underestimated the speed of Nadine's reflexes, and the vampire easily plucked the morsels out of the air and looked at them curiously. "What is this?" she asked as she held it up to Malachi. Even he was a bit surprised that she was completely fine after touching these foods covered in garlic, but it seemed as though his backup plan had just gone out the window. "You don't feel like you're burning or anything?" "No, they're cold." "No, I mean... never mind," he muttered. "Why is she here?" Anna asked pointedly. Malachi explained to the girls the story of how he and Nadine's fates became entangled, and he unsurprisingly received some very poor reactions. Flames began to flicker along Bianca's forearms and Aisha reflexively pulled out one of her swords. Before any of the girls could destroy his living room in a fight they weren't going to win, Malachi held up his hand to diffuse the tension. "Don't bother. If Morgan couldn't torch her, then I'm pretty sure you guys couldn't do it either. She's harmless anyways, and she was actually able to give us some information about what's coming." "I did?" "You did." "Oh, well then can I be rewarded then? If you give me the same treatment as what you gave that woman earlier, I could be..." Ding dong. Nadine had no idea just how close she came to joining her ex-husband in the afterlife before she was saved by a guest at the door. A moment later, a mature woman of Korean descent and wearing a pantsuit entered into the apartment, looking around with a sense of urgency. "Mum?" Anna asked. Hello dear. I'm sorry for dropping by so suddenly, but I had to come talk to Luna." "Who's the blonde in a hockey jersey?" Malachi prepared to introduce Nadine when he finally realized she had on different clothes than when she first arrived here. Instead of her ancient purple dress that matched her eyes, she now had on a famous hockey jersey with black jean shorts and even a pair of sneakers. "Nadine, where the hell did you get those clothes?" Malachi asked, already fearing the answer. "Do you like them?" "Are you fucking with it?" "The hell? Who the fuck taught you how to talk like that?" Well, when I went exploring last night I ran into a young woman who taught me this world's dialect, and she also told me that my fit was..." "What was the word?" "Cheeks," as he said. Christ. It was only after conversing with her for a tiny bit longer that I realized that she was making fun of me. "So since you said I wasn't allowed to harm or compel anyone..." "Definitely not." I asked her how to correct the problem with my attire instead, and she pointed me in the direction of her favorite apparel shop. By now not only Malachi, but and the rest of the girls were also confused. "Nadine, it was around midnight when we separated, so everything should have been closed. How did you get inside of a store? And where did you get the money from?" Luna questioned. Nadine held up her hands as if she was completely innocent. "Malachi said that I couldn't compel or hurt anyone. He never said that I couldn't steal or break into places." The silence that settled into the room was nearly deafening. But eventually, Aubrey and Anna lost their ability to keep themselves composed and they fell over each other laughing. "What's funny?" Nadine asked. "I had to make it do what it do." "No." Finally, Malachi clasped his hand over the vampire's mouth as he tried to calm his raging headache. Suddenly he felt like he understood what Aisha must have gone through when he taught her mother modern slang. While it was funny back then, he now felt like he owed his best friend an apology. Do I even want to know what's going on?" Joanne asked. "Number." She ran her hands through her hair and decided it was best to listen to them and focus on the reason she'd even come here in the first place. Walking up to Luna calmly, she let out a sigh containing all of the exhaustion her job seemed to cause her. "I heard you were having a few grievances and I've been sent to try to resolve them as amicably as possible." There are no grievances to resolve, Joanne. "I've decided to disband my guild for my own personal reasons and none other." "What?" and Malachi cried in unison. Luna shrugged her shoulders at the both of them and sat down onto the couch lazily. "I was planning on telling you both, but it just got away from me." "Why so suddenly?" Mal asked. "I wanna be lazy." She lied. "Luna, Please be rational about this. Joanne was on the verge of begging at this point, but she was really trying not to show it. The president was so frantic when he called her on the phone that she knew he would never stop bugging her if she didn't sort this all out. The only reason why he didn't come himself was because Luna specifically told him to leave her alone. You don't exactly disobey someone who can remove your head from your body with a flick of their fingers. So that meant that he had to send someone whom she couldn't do that to in order to get through to her. But judging by the way things were going now, Joanne would not fare any better than he would have. The mature beauty sighed and sat down next to Luna in the hopes of getting through to her. I understand that it was the principle of the situation, but the government is trying to make amends here and I need to know how to repair things as quickly as possible so I can go home and day drink. Fuck, you really are my mum, Anna muttered. Ignoring her, Luna sat up and stared at Joanne hard before deciding to speak. Joanne, am I speaking to the mother of someone dear to me or an agent of the United States government? The sudden question threw Joanne almost completely off guard and she stared at her daughter out of the corner of her eye. She had already lost so much time with her by putting her job higher on her list of priorities for 10 whole years, and she wouldn't do it again. From now on, she would always be Anna's mother first and anything else second. As the mother of someone dear to you. Why do you ask? Luna seemed to find her answer satisfactory and she held out her hand for Malaki. Darling, can you come here a moment? Slightly surprised, Malaki released Nadine and gave her a behave look before sitting next to Luna. The group watched as she whispered surprising information into his ear and his brow rose in surprise. What's out there? Just take us, darling. All right. Before anyone knew what was happening, the shadows within the room swallowed up everyone present and pulled them into the floor. At an undisclosed location, the group appeared on what appeared to be a large cliff overshadowed by a powerful waterfall. This the right place? Malaki asked. It is indeed, thank you, my darling. The group watched as Luna went towards a large boulder nearby and placed her hand on the rocky surface. Access granted. 001. Emi Inui. A robotic voice rang out and a sliding door appeared from within the boulder. Luna turned back to the group of stunned companions and held out her hand like she was inviting them to enter. Don't dawdle now, you all. I'm really proud of this place. Once the group piled into the elevator, Luna pressed one of the first 10 buttons that was placed along the wall. Their bodies jerked a little bit as they started descending slowly into the mountain. Ding! The sliding door finally pulled open, and the occupants inside sucked in their breath. What they were staring at was some kind of futuristic and lavish common area, complete with multiple couches and seating space with monitors mounted to the white walls. They had a few more small amenities in the corners like a ping-pong table and a dining area, but other than that there were no more noteworthy features. What is this place? Joanne asked. Luna smiled proudly as she folded her arms across her large chest. This is the reason why I no longer need the guild. My focus now lies solely on preparing my girls for what's coming, instead of being focused on our PR or endorsement deals. Joanne frowned as she slipped her hands into her pockets. And what exactly is it that's coming? If you're referring to the uprising then I doubt that. Nah. That's not what she means, Joanne, Malaki said with a sigh. Briefly, Malaki told her all he knew about the nightmares, which admittedly wasn't very much. Nonetheless, Joanne felt like her head was going to explode from this new wave of information. Why you all have known about this and haven't told anyone? Why would you keep this to yourselves? Hypothetically, what do you think would happen if I just one day randomly started telling the whole world that the end times were coming without having any proof? Luna asked. Joanne needed only a moment to think about it, and the possible scenarios weren't that good. They would either call her crazy or proclaim that she was trying to stay relevant by not having proof, or the exact opposite would happen and the whole world would be embroiled in a state of panic. It was really a lose situation. Oh? Seems like you've figured out an answer for yourself then. Lovely, fine, I get it, but you could have at least told the leaders of the world governments. Their reactions wouldn't be so terrible and they would likely start to build some sort of doomsday plan. Her idea wasn't without merit, and this was also something that Luna had thought of, but there was just one recurring problem. She didn't have any proof. Even an influential guildmaster would need some kind of backing if she suddenly started ranting about Gates only being a precursor to real bloodshed. The world leaders would certainly develop plans, but they would first require some or any kind of proof before they started to move such a tremendous amount of money and resources around. All she had was the word of her young boyfriend, who had a very poor depiction in the media. Next to Arias, he would be the last person who they were willing to trust. We'll have to tell them eventually to keep down the number of casualties once everything begins, but as of right now, this is where we've found ourselves. Joanne didn't like it and looked like she was going to put up some kind of protest. When she saw her daughter out of the corner of her eye, Anna wasn't saying anything, merely staring at her as if she was waiting to see just how her mother would handle this frustrating revelation. All right then. So what is this place exactly? Luna smiled and held her arms out proudly for everyone to see. This is the Nightfall base. When things start to get ugly, my intention is to have the former members of Immortal Moon live here and work together to act as rescuers and protectors. From there on, Luna showed the group the rest of the base. Each floor contained a different amenity, some designed for function and others to make this place more homey and livable. On one floor there was an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and on another there was an armory that was already halfway filled with decent weapons and armor. There was also a floor containing a garage filled with modified armored cars that would do more than well in the event they needed to mow down a few brain-dead zombies or whatever was to come. A pair of hangar doors could be opened up to reveal a carved-out trail that went through the mountain and led into the road on the other side, like a scene out of a Batman movie. On another floor, there was a workshop that made Bianca squeal and caused hearts to form in her eyes. Mal had never been jealous of inanimate objects before today. Of course, there was a floor filled with training rooms and even a basketball court. And because Luna is nothing if not an overachiever and perfectionist, one of the floors even contained a greenhouse that was already beginning to produce fruits and vegetables. But the most impressive part was the dorm rooms. There were exactly 60. Enough for the members of Immortal Moon and any parents or siblings the girls decided to bring with them. They were around 800 square feet on average, complete with a bedroom, shower, kitchen, and sitting area. To substitute the lack of windows in this underground space, the northernmost walls could show lifelike depictions of various environments: rainy city, tropical rainforest, ocean water, and even sunset and sunrise. There was even already furniture and canned food items inside, making them move in ready at any time. I'll tell you now that some of the rooms are bigger than others, so you might want to lay claim to yours now, Luna said cheekily. Serena, Aisha, Aubrey, and Nadine all twitched when they heard that, and they immediately ran out of the elevator to go and choose a room. Joanne didn't think she would ever end up staying here, but she decided to go look around nonetheless. She was too roguish to admit it to herself, but she was actually beginning to enjoy the lively atmosphere within the group. So much so that she was starting to feel a teensy bit jealous that Anna got to hang around these people all the time. Serena, the poorest girl should get the biggest room, it's only fair. Aisha, how the hell does that work? Don't be slow and you can get whatever room you want. Aubrey, babe, what about this one? It's perfect for us, right? Nadine, somebody teach me about these square boxes on the walls. Don't ignore me, help a bitch out. Malaki and S prepared to step off the elevator and go find a room of their own when Luna suddenly grabbed the two of them by the hand. Pulling them back into the elevator, she placed her palm on a black space beneath the elevator buttons. A blue hue shone through a small panel and the doors to the elevator closed once again, and they started to descend one floor lower. There's more we ain't seen yet? Honestly, how could you even do all of this, love? Malaki asked. Luna smiled proudly at him as the elevator finally came to a stop at its final floor. When you told me all those months ago about the task placed upon you by the gods, I immediately got to work on this. I wanted to help others, sure, But my main priority was making sure that we could have somewhere that we could be safe and not worry about scrounging for food or basic amenities. When the doors to the elevator finally slid open, the four inside let out gasps of shock. Already different from the apartments above, this one actually contained a window and allowed the group to see that they were currently behind the powerful waterfall they saw earlier. At 4,000 square feet, it was larger than even Mal's current apartment. The floors were made out of some sanded down black stone, which felt so pleasant to walk on that it was preferable to walk around barefoot. Coincidentally, the walls were also painted black, matching Anna's aesthetic to a T and causing her to let out her own happy squeal. There was a large living room area complete with a sectional sofa that was comparable in softness to the flying clouds Aubrey could make. Their kitchen was complete with black marble countertops, a surplus of storage space, and even a functional stove and oven that's new for a fact costed well over a few $1,000s. But what was more touching was the rooms she'd specifically prepared with each of them in mind. Down one hall, there was a room that contained a room lined with art supplies. There was a spare closet with at least 100 blank canvases, paint of various colors, and an easel sitting directly in the center of the room. To make the moment even sweeter, there was a speaker and a cat bed in the corner, just to make this place feel a bit more like home. Clearly, this place was for Anna. "I hope you like it," Luna said shyly. "I know that this is a strange arrangement that we have, but I've really grown to." Like a bullet, Anna barreled right into Luna's chest and gave her a desperate hug. With a red face, she returned it and tried to crack a small joke to hide her sudden shyness. "Naughty girl, you didn't even let me finish my sentence." "I didn't need to hear it. I already know what you were trying to say and I couldn't agree more." Now it was not just Anna and Luna, Butz and Bianca were also starting to get misty-eyed. Sharing one man could be difficult sometimes, and even though Malachi drowned them in as much love and attention as they could ever want, it could still be a tough pill to swallow. However, the relationships they'd formed amongst each other made this entire thing work smoothly. It was harder to feel jealous and possessive over Malachi when they cared so much about each other and wanted to see the other girls happy. And since they had taken pieces of Malachi into their bodies, the bond between them had become significantly stronger. Now, no one in this relationship could do without each other, no matter what would happen in the future. Luna eventually wiped her eyes and looked back at the other three in the room. "Now, would you like to see what I have for the rest of you? Just promise not to go crying on me." "So, the world is going to end? But you have no idea when, and the things that are coming are called nightmares. And you want us to focus on fighting them, which is the reason why you're disbanding the guild. Did we get all that right?" "Pretty much," Luna admitted. She was in the common area of the Nightfall base, staring back at the 44 members of her guild whom she'd brought here on short notice. If she was honest, she was expecting for there to be a great deal more panic coming from them and was surprised when she didn't see any. There were some concerned faces and some shocked ones, but everyone seemed to be in almost total control of themselves. "I have to admit, I was expecting for you girls to be a bit more frightened," Luna said. Rose Ortega looked around at all of her fellow guild mates and she came to an accurate consensus. "I think we're all just kind of shocked and it's not really hit us yet," she admitted. "I mean the reality that everything you've ever known is about to go up in smoke is a little." She didn't bother to finish her assessment, but Luna didn't have any real difficulty understanding what she was getting at. Later on, at some point, it was highly likely that the news they had received today was going to really hit them and they would probably be a bit more erratic than this. But the fact that you've built this one-of-a-kind place for us to be once everything starts, it's more than a little bit reassuring and it makes all of this a little bit less scary. Just a little bit though. I feel the same. She's right. I think if I had to spend the apocalypse here, it wouldn't be too bad. Luna showed a small smile as she felt just a tiny bit of her tension leave her shoulders. "I was honestly expecting you not to believe me." "Well, we probably wouldn't have if you didn't show us this crazy fortress you built and told us about everything going on with Malachi," one admitted. The members of Immortal Moon were all extremely close-knit, therefore once they learned about their only male member's warning from the gods, they knew it was all real. He simply wasn't the type to lie about such a thing, not even for a cheap laugh. "Speaking of, where is your boyfriend, boss lady?" Nino asked. For some reason, Luna showed the girls a wry smile that none of them knew how to process. "He's got his hands full right now. But he likes this place so much that he's already moved in downstairs, so you'll see him soon." As Luna had said, Malachi packed up his apartment wishing 5 minutes and moved in here the other day. His apartment was starting to get really crowded with everyone that was staying there currently, so he couldn't wait to get out and have the extra space. And with the beautiful waterfall view that he saw from his window every morning, he did not regret his decision in the slightest. Got his hands filled with what exactly? Are those things already starting to come into this world? He wishes. Malachi let out a deep sigh as he stepped out of his car in the parking lot of an auto body shop. Coming around the passenger side, he opened the door to his precious car and let one of his girlfriends out. Bianca happily stepped into view, and flashed him a knowing smile. "You look nervous. Having second thoughts, babe?" "Never that," he said firmly. Bianca interlocked their hands together and started pulling him towards the garage. "I'll hold you to that. Make sure not to change your mind." Irregardless of whether he wanted to or not, Bianca's grip on his hand was so tight that he never could have run away even if he had the chance. She led the two of them right into the open garage and paused before she filled her lungs with air. "Daddy, we're here." Malachi was temporarily stunned by the volume of Bianca's voice that was like nothing he'd ever heard before. From the other side of the garage, a door opened up and a huge man strode through. At 6'6", Malachi wasn't used to people being his height anymore. Therefore when Bianca's father showed up, he was slightly taken aback. Malachi had seen pictures of this man before, but seeing him in person made him realize that he was much bigger than he thought. His large body was paired with explosive muscles and a more than healthy beer belly that was indicative of his second favorite pastime. Like Bianca, he had rich chocolate skin and light amber eyes that must have made him a big hit with the ladies. However, that was really where the similarities ended. As already mentioned, he was extremely big and buff, with 2 tattoo sleeves covering both of his arms. He had a shiny bald head and a thick black beard that appeared to be well groomed and maintained. His size 15 Timberland boots thudded off the floor with every step, making him seem like a real-life iteration of Godzilla. But when he saw Bianca, he held out his large arms happily and allowed her to fly directly into them, and the two shared a sentimental greeting. "Who is this young adult up in my shop? You're growing up so fast I can barely recognize you." "I just came here 3 days ago, and I'm already 22. Bianca laughed. "See what I mean? Growing too fast." Malachi merely watched the two of them with a small smile on his face as he waited for his presence to be acknowledged. Just like Anna, Bianca's mother wasn't in her life, so her father was all she had. She didn't much like to talk about the rough times she had growing up and no one ever asked her, but they all knew just how close she and her dad were. Daddy, I had someone I wanted to introduce you to." Bianca suddenly released her father and went right to Malachi's side and held his arm happily. "This is my boyfriend, Malachi. It's nice to meet you." Bang! Mal didn't even get to finish his greeting as Bianca's father Ali pulled out the biggest handgun that he had ever seen. In reality it was a Desert Eagle, but to him it looked like one of those super guns that was wielded by a vampire in an anime. "Daddy, you can't scare him with that. He's bulletproof," Bianca reminded. "Shit, I damn near forgot." Malachi thought in embarrassment. Ali didn't say a word as he walked past them and went to the wall on the other side of the room. Reaching up, he pulled a shotgun off the wall and pumped it once just for dramatic effect. "Bulletproof doesn't mean that you can just get a bigger gun and it'll work. Stop being extra and come say hi," Bianca scolded. Ali unloaded the buckshot from his shotgun and started walking towards Malachi. Once the two of them were eye to eye, he held out his hand and handed him the bullets that he was going to try to put in him a mere moment ago. "I know who you are, Saint." "I don't like your ass, Daddy." "Can I ask why?" Mal said calmly. Ali ignored his daughter for once and instead focused solely on the young man in front of him. "You're not the kind of brother I want to be with my daughter. You are no good hoe who's just going to break her heart sooner or later, and I'm going to have to fuck you up when you do. Give a damn about no invincibility. Daddy, that's not true. Why are you acting like this? Bianca yelled. Because I know cats like this, B. Based on everything you've already told me, I know exactly how this is going to end, and you're only going to get hurt as a result. Bianca told her father almost everything. The day she took her aptitude test and got blessed, she was ranting and raving about this young man she met who she was really attracted to. So much so that she joined his guild without any other consideration and the singular goal of getting closer to him. Day in and day out, he listened as she told him about how she was adamantly trying to get his attention, and yet it never seemed to work. She even pulled multiple all-nighters to craft him a suit of body armor and new weapons that he was sure could have sold for a few grand easily. But what really set his impression in stone was how she told him about the other girlfriends he had. From that point on, he was sure that this young man was only using his daughter and stringing her along, without having any real interest in her. And he couldn't let that slide. Don't know what you came here for, but if you're looking for my approval you ain't finna get it. My baby deserves better than to be some backup hoe that you only go to when you need some shit done. If she ain't gonna be your number one, then you need to leave her the fuck alone. Bianca felt her heart beginning to beat wildly out of control as she looked back and forth between her father and Malachi. Honestly, she was never expecting for things to turn out like this. She knew her father wasn't keen on him, but she thought that he was just being overprotective and he would eventually get over it. Only now was she realizing that her father's issues went much deeper than she initially thought. She was desperately regretting her decision to have them meet each other today. Malachi on the other hand was slightly frozen and unsure of what to say. But because he wanted to clear up this misunderstanding as soon as possible, he finally opened his mouth to speak. Truthfully, Malachi could fully understand why Ali was upset. Bianca was the first girl to show interest in him after his breakup with Melanie, but she was the last girl that he started dating. It wasn't intentional, as he was always attracted to her from the jump, but things just always seemed to get in the way of their progressing relationship. He could only imagine the pain he must have caused her, and the guilt he felt from treating her feelings so casually was more than a little agonizing. I'll admit, it really took me longer than I'm proud to admit to make things official with Bianca. But it was never because I didn't care about her or the things she did for me. Then what was it? Ali asked gruffly. Honestly, Mal didn't believe her father would care about his answer either way, but he knew that he was still obligated to try. But there was really only so much that he could say. No reason that I could give would ever be a good one. I already know that, especially when the truth is that I was just careless with her feelings. Malachi wasn't sure if Bianca's dad was going to try to kill him for this, but he didn't care. Reaching out, he took her hand in his own and held it tenderly just as he always did. But every day since we've made things official, I've done my best to make her and the other women I'm seeing the happiest girls on the planet. They are all integral pieces of my life that I can't go without. And Bianca is a part of that. Not because of the things she's done for me, but because of the happiness she brings me, and I will give every ounce of my flesh and blood to make sure that she never regrets her decision to be with me. His words certainly worked on Bianca, and the small smile on her face was utterly bewitching. Playfully, she gave him a small nudge on the ribs as she rested her head on his shoulder. That's sweet, but you're not exactly flesh and blood anymore, babe. Oh yay. I forgot. Who is your damn babe? Ali roared. And what's this I'm hearing about him not having no blood? The young couple smiled wryly and merely chose not to comment on Ali's question, making him stare at Mal much more suspiciously than before. Is you a damn zombie, boy? Not quite. Vampire? Getting colder. Daddy? He's not a monster. Bianca yelled. Then what the fuck do you mean he don't got no blood? Bianca, we got blood. Why the hell don't he have blood? Ali nearly shit his oversized pants as a scene that he never thought possible played in front of his eyes. Malachi's skin literally flaked off his body like old paint and fell onto the floor of the shop. When it was all off, Ali was staring at a man comprised solely of nebulas, stars, and darkness. It was without a doubt the strangest thing he had ever seen in all his years of life. Hesitantly, he raised one of his overgrown sausage fingers and poked Malachi directly in the forehead. His finger easily passed through the surface, and was engulfed in a somewhat chilly embrace. "What the hell? Kinda weird, huh? How the fuck are you speaking with no mouth?" Ali asked in horror. Malaki thought about it for a moment before realizing he didn't actually know either. "I guess it's one of the perks that comes when your mom is a really strong goddess," he guessed with a shrug. Ali seemed to have some real difficulty believing that as he stared at Mal suspiciously. Eventually he just took a few steps back and elected not to ask any more questions. He was already beginning to get a headache from this entire surprise visit, and by now he just wanted it to be over. "Saint, go back to normal so I can look you in the eye man to man." Malaki obliged and rubbed the skin on his face, causing Ali to shiver as he felt like he'd already seen too much. "Right then. How can you be sure that you won't break my baby's heart?" "Because I would rather die. She means everything to me." "Everything?" "Kinda hard to believe when you got 3 other girlfriends." "Makes you seem like a hoe who just says anything in the moment." Ali's reaction was fair, and any other father would have likely had the same concerns if they were in his shoes. After all, who wants their daughter to be the 4th girl in a harem? Malaki completely understood his line of thinking, and as such he pretended he was not insulted by Ali's constant insistence that he was a hoe. "I can promise you I'm not sleazy like that, and everything I've ever said about my girls is genuine. Bianca, Anna, and Luna all mean the world to me, and like I said, I love every one of them equally." Ali still seemed like he wasn't the biggest fan of Malaki, but he respected his honesty and straightforwardness at least. And even if he didn't like it, he had to admit that his daughter seemed to be happier with him than he had ever seen her. It was a pleasant but slightly depressing feeling. Ali stuck out his hand for Malaki to shake, and he stared at it only briefly before he shook it without a second thought. "If you go back on your word, I'll find some way to kill you," Ali said as he tightened his grasp. "I'll hold you to that." Malaki nodded. A few hours later, Malaki and Bianca were back in her apartment, getting the last of her stuff that she needed to move into the base. Furniture and things of that nature would be moved to a storage room she had across town, so all that she was really here to pick up were her various gaming consoles and clothing items. Malaki finally finished taping the last box together and wiped his brow of imaginary sweat. "I'm done in here, B. You good to go, Greek?" Malaki glanced over his shoulder at Bianca's bedroom door and his eyes nearly left his face again. His girlfriend was standing completely naked, with her toned yet soft body on full display and all her assets hanging out. "I think I'm ready," she said shyly. She wasn't quite sure what the last piece of the puzzle was. All she knew was that watching her boyfriend try to win her father's approval had done something to her. Truth be told, he didn't need to do that. Even though they had never had sex before, Malaki already had a part of Bianca inside of her, and the love that the two of them shared was unbreakable. Ali could have complained till he was blue in the face, and it still wouldn't have changed anything. And yet, Malaki suffered through all of her father's rude behavior because he knew just how much it would mean to her to have him on their side. It was just about the kindest thing that anyone had ever done for her, and it helped her to make up her mind. She wanted to cross the threshold and take that final step in their relationship, legitimizing everything that they had even further. "And don't ask me if I'm sure again or if I'm still scared, because I've made up my mind to go through with this and there is nothing that..." Bianca's words trailed off as she watched Malaki stand up and begin to undress. He came out of his sweater and jeans easily and kicked off his shoes before approaching Bianca in just his boxers. She let out a small yelp as he easily scooped her into his arms and carried her into the bedroom before closing the door behind them. Malaki had already wanted Bianca desperately for so long that when she finally told him she was ready, he didn't question it. As soon as her door closed behind them, he laid her body onto the bed gently and hovered above her. "Damn, I was honestly expecting you to protest just a bit," Bianca said with a sheepish smile. "Guess I made you wait too long, huh?" "You did, but it's all right. I know that you will be more than worth the wait." Bianca's heart was beating out of control from the sheer excitement of what was about to happen. As Malaki lowered his lips onto hers, she relaxed and surrendered her body to his total control. "No, I want to be in charge and then make him go crazy." Before Mal knew it, Bianca had gotten from underneath him and flipped him over, straddling him with a satisfied look on her face. "What are you doing, B?" Malaki asked with a smile. "The girls always say that you attack them like a wild animal without ever letting them come up for air. I'm gonna set myself apart from them by taking the lead, ... But it's your first." I don't care if it's my first time. I said I was going to do it and I am," she yelled. Malaki chuckled and fully relaxed into the bed, not intending to move an inch. "All right then, take the lead, my love." For now, Bianca ignored the very hard bulge she could feel poking into her bare bottom and instead focused her attention elsewhere. With a bit of force, she grabbed Malaki by the face and began to kiss him playfully, biting his lips and slipping her tongue inside of his mouth. Even though Mal had promised to stay still, his body unconsciously acted of its own volition. His hands immediately went to Bianca's soft round ass, giving it a firm squeeze and forcing her body to grind against his. He's supposed to be staying still, but it feels really good, so I'll let him keep going, she thought. Removing her lips from his, Bianca started to kiss and bite on Malaki's neck, making a trail of dark marks down the length of his body. Finally, she reached his black boxers that were currently still struggling to retain the frightening member buried beneath. Bianca swallowed and took a deep breath as she finally pulled down his boxers, and a shadow covered her face that made her want to run away in fear. Even though this was to be the first time that she and Malaki would have sex, she had already seen him naked quite a few times before. Though never like this. This. There is no way I can fit this inside of me, Bianca said honestly. Malaki knew that maybe his size would have been too much for a virgin, so he decided this would be the perfect moment to test something he'd only theorized. Gradually, his member shrank by 3 inches and lost a bit of its daunting girth, and he nodded his head in satisfaction. "Better, love?" "No, it's still too big. I think you're just being scary. This is the same size that it was before I got blessed." "Oh my god, what the fuck is wrong with you?" she thought in exhaustion. However, Bianca swallowed her cries of indignation. She was already getting a handicap by having him be smaller than normal, so she couldn't keep complaining or else she'd never earn the respect of the other girls. Finally, Bianca shuffled around and brought her behind towards Malaki. Her legs opened right above his face. She brought her hips down enough so that she could feel his warm breath against her already drenched lips. Her garden was plump with a small tuft of black hair atop it, making her as pretty upstairs as she was downstairs. Malaki raised a brow in surprise, clearly not expecting for her to know about such a tactic. "Where'd you learn this, love?" "P-porn." "Anna Luna." She finally gripped his member with both hands and felt the rigidity that was comparable to an iron pole. With her mind made up, she opened her mouth as wide as it would go before she took it inside. When she heard Malaki release a small groan from behind her, a small sense of thrill started to bubble up in her heart. She wasn't really an expert on these sorts of things, but she had received a fair amount of tips. Keeping her teeth as far away as possible and licking meticulously on the spots she believed would feel the best, she was sure that she would make him come in no time. "Wait. Do I let him do it on my face or in my mouth? Which one would feel better for him? What does it taste like? Do I have to swallow it?" Anna said spitters are quitters, so that means I have to, right? Naturally, Malaki could hear Bianca's rambling thoughts and fought off the urge to laugh. Deciding not to leave her with so much to think about, he finally brought his lips towards her leaking garden and gave her a long lick to savor her taste. She was sweet, and yet slightly bitter like lightly salted peaches. Once the first taste had been introduced into his system, he was like a man possessed as he thrust his tongue deeper, determined to taste as much as he could. He felt his love shudder in his grasp as she lost her sense of proactiveness, unaccustomed to these new waves of pleasure that were flowing through her. Bianca was a relatively sheltered girl growing up. As such, the most she'd ever done was finger herself a few times after watching a steamy movie. The sensation of a warm and soft tongue expertly searching through all of her nooks and crannies was quickly becoming too much to bear. She had already stopped sucking Malaki as aggressively as before, and now she merely held his member in her mouth as she suppressed her delicate moans. Finally, Mal felt Bianca squirm in his grasp much more furiously than before, and he knew that she was reaching her limit. I should make it memorable for her then. Grabbing Bianca's butt so that she couldn't move, he embraced her small pink clit between his lips and started to suck on it meticulously. At the same time, he used his thumb to press against her ass without actually pushing, slipping inside, and the effect was instantaneous. Bianca's back arched hard enough to break her spine as she threw her head up into the air and let out a desperate and bestial scream. She pressed the full weight of her body down onto Malachi's face, further heightening the intense pleasure she felt as she quickly reached the peak. "Baby, I feel it. I'm coming." Bianca's first orgasm was even bit as strong and breathtaking as Malachi wanted it to be, and her scream, his ears filled him with the greatest sense of pride that he had ever known. Bianca rode out her orgasm for the better part of a minute, and when it was finally over her body fell to the side while she trembled terribly. As her eyes refocused, she saw her boyfriend's member that was still standing proudly without showing any signs of going limp. "Damn, I was hoping that we'd both get to come at the same time." Malachi fought the urge to laugh once again as he finally sat up on the bed. "Don't feel bad, love. I think I've just had a lot more practice." "Yay. You're probably right. Man whore." "Hey, he. I'm kidding." Shakily, Bianca arched her butt up into the air and gave her boyfriend a view of her garden that was begging to be filled. "I couldn't make you come with my mouth this time, so use this instead." Never needing to be told something so enticing twice, Malachi immediately positioned himself behind Bianca and placed both hands on her waist. As he pushed his hips forward slowly, Malachi and Bianca both let out erotic groans. He was overwhelmed by the overwhelming tightness and her elevated body temperature, and she was still wrestling with the pain and pleasure that came with having another person inside of her for the first time. When her hymen was broken, Bianca finally let out a scream that was not born of pleasure, but pain. Malachi immediately stopped dead in his tracks and put on a concerned expression. "Do you want to stop?" Bianca gritted her teeth and clenched her fists so hard that he thought they would break, and he started to pull out without even waiting for an answer. "No." Before Malachi could leave her body, Bianca reached behind her to hold his wrist. I've been waiting for this for a really long time now, babe. The girls always tell me how nice it feels when you guys give yourselves to each other, and I want that too. I don't want to feel like I'm the last one left out in our relationship anymore." Bianca looked at her boyfriend from behind, and Malachi could see a radiant smile on her face along with a single tear sliding down her cheek. "So I don't care if it hurts at first, just make me feel your love for me, and let me give myself to you, okay?" Faced with such sincere feelings from a woman whom he loved to pieces, Malachi felt his own non-existent heart beginning to thump wildly in his chest. Feelings of gratitude, love, desperation, and fervent need began to bubble up within him. Finally, he started to push his hips forward and treaded deeper inside of her, trying not to get lost in the pleasure so soon. Bianca was still having a hard time, and the feeling of being opened up all the way to her stomach was surely going to take some getting used to. Once most of him was inside, the two of them remained frozen for a moment to allow her to get accustomed to his size. They must have remained frozen in place for upwards of 5 minutes, with Mal gently caressing Bianca's butt and lower back in the hopes of helping her to relax. Eventually, it seemed as though his tender care had paid off as Bianca's small voice finally gave the signal he'd been waiting for. "Start slow for me, okay?" Of course, just tell me if it hurts too bad," Malachi said gently. Once he saw her nod, he began to move inside her for the first time. As she'd requested, he started with slow and shallow strokes that were designed to get her used to the feeling of being penetrated. Gradually, her moans changed from ones of pain into melodies of pleasure. Malachi tried not to let his mind be swept up into the sensation of Bianca's insides and remained steady at his current pace and depth with great difficulty. Perhaps because of his girlfriend's power over fire, her body temperature was a fair bit higher than normal, and it was a new and pleasurable sensation that threatened to sap his rationale. Harder please," Bianca stammered. Mal's excitement flared at her words and he immediately complied. The sound of their flesh slapping together became louder, and in turn so did their moans and breathing. Malachi was now thrusting into her at a moderate pace, and Bianca was quickly beginning to learn that he was an expert in finding the spots that made her feel the best and rubbing against them with just the right amount of force. Sex no longer felt as scary or as painful as it did before. Instead, a jolt of pure euphoria would shoot into her brain every time that she felt him moving around. She let out a yelp when he suddenly wrapped his arms around her body and leaned her upwards so that her back was pressed into his chest. His two hands cupped both of her large breasts into his overflowing palms, and he felt her squirm in his grasp from the new sensation that came with a change in position. As Mal pinched and pulled her gorgeous brown nipples rhythmically, he buried his head into the crook of her neck and started to bite her delicately. Only going so far as to leave a few marks, it was more than enough to cause a reaction in Bianca. Her moans became louder, and Mal felt her insides clamping down on him harder than before. Bianca started to become just a bit bolder in the act, and she backed her hips up against Malachi to match his thrusts. "Gonna come again," she said desperately. "Me too." The couple felt their worlds start to spin as they came in unison. Used to finishing as deep as he could, Mal unconsciously pushed himself as deep as possible inside of Bianca, earning a not-so-quiet scream followed by a string of profanities. He thought that he had hurt her, however he was surprised when she kept bucking against him amidst the high of her own orgasm. "Please don't stop, make me come again." Bianca had a few years of unresolved sexual tension that she was finally getting a chance to put to bed. She was going to use every bit of this time with her boyfriend to ensure that she got her fill from all of the times she'd spent missing out. Now that she knew how good sex could feel, she was almost like a completely different woman. "Why you don't have to hold back anymore, just treat me like the other girls," she demanded. This request admittedly caused Mal to raise a brow, but he could feel that Bianca was serious about her request. "Try not to pass out, love." "I'm only doing what you asked." Bianca only had a moment to process as Malachi suddenly released her upper body and held onto her by her arms. Holding onto them behind her back, Malachi drilled into Bianca without rest, sending her into heaven from the sensation of him being completely inside of her and striking against her cervix repeatedly. Fuck, it hurts. It hurts, but it feels so good." Bianca literally had tears running down her face as she moaned lustfully and panted like she was about to faint. Mal was pretty sure that everyone on this floor could hear her with how loud she was being, but as of this moment he couldn't really bring himself to care. As long as Bianca was desperately goading him for more, he would oblige her. Once again, he came inside of Bianca without even bothering to slow down, and she savored the feeling of her insides filling up further as well as a euphoric loss of control. This was what it meant to give yourself to someone, and this was the feeling she had been so desperately craving. Her mind was addled with euphoria. She had lost count of how many orgasms she'd had, and she had never felt more loved in her life. As Malachi felt Bianca release another clear jet of water onto the bedsheets, he finished inside her once again to make things even. "I wonder, just how long can you keep this up?" Forgetting that Bianca could read his thoughts, Malachi was surprised when she suddenly looked back at him and smiled with drunken pleasure. "We're going all night. I want you to use me as much as you want. We're not going home until the morning." 37 minutes later, Malachi was looking down at Bianca's body on the bed. She was breathing heavily, and her gorgeously curvaceous figure was wrapped in a sheen of sweat. A mixture of blood, black gel, and her own juices were steadily flowing from her swollen garden onto the bedsheets. One arm was covering her face, and the other was holding an ice pack wrapped in cloth up to her lower lips. So fucking embarrassing. Ha ha ha. Malachi laughed as he lay on the bed beside his girlfriend and pulled her into his arms. "It was your first time, love. You for real thought you were going to be able to go all night? That's what happens in doujin and dirty novels. Why do you have to be so cute?" Unable to resist, Malachi left a few kisses on her cheeks that slowly drifted towards her lips. Bianca moaned lightly into his mouth, as she initiated a more aggressive kiss before she punched him hard in the chest to break away. Don't be starting nothing if you know I can't do anything right now, so I can't kiss on you now just because you tapped out. Why am I the one getting punished? 'Cause you're the one who did it. Big head. But you beg. Hush. Bianca placed a hand over Malachi's mouth to stop him from embarrassing her further. However, this backfired when she felt the tongue that she was so familiar with lick her hand, and her body suppressed a small shiver. Seriously, you just wait for me to heal up. I'm really going to keep you between my legs all night. Muffled, that ain't no problem. Now Bianca was the one laughing, and she couldn't help but give Mal a kiss of her own volition. This tender display of aftercare went on for several minutes longer. Neither of them bothered to move or put on clothes. As such, they merely lie on the bed and made jokes while admiring each other's naked bodies. It was a sweet moment and possibly Mal's favorite memory that he shared with Bianca, but it was about to face the rudest interruption imaginable. "Hey, would you love me if I was a cockroach?" Bianca asked. "Why would you?" "Yes, I would," Mal responded. "Lying ass." "I'm not. If you really turned into one, then I'd keep you in a little box." And, like a bomb had went off, all of Mal's senses started to go haywire. Immediately sitting up on the bed, his body shot towards the window and he peeked through the curtains. The sky was unnaturally dark and cloudy, like a heavy storm was about to rip through the city. "Baby, what's wrong?" Bianca asked from the bed. Mal wondered if maybe he was just making a mistake, and then it happened. There was a loud cracking sound like glass being shattered, and an enormous hole opened up in the sky. Malachi barely had a moment to tell Bianca to stay back before a massive deluge of water fell out, spilling onto the streets and swamping them immediately. In a remarkably short amount of time, the streets began to fill up with dark murky water. In the blink of an eye, it had reached ankle level, and was steadily rising with no real sign of it slowing down. It was clear that this entire area was going to flood within a matter of minutes. Malachi could see some people driving like mad trying to get away, and others were running frantically into buildings as if they were hoping to get to safety. "I'm going to send you home, all right? When you get there I need you to give Joanna a call and tell her to meet me out here," Malachi said. "Wait. I can help." Bianca tried to get to her feet, but her legs were utterly useless after everything she and Mal had done earlier, so she quickly went down. Luckily, her boyfriend was there to catch her before she hit the ground, and he gave her a pitying look. "I know you want to help, but you're not really in the best condition for that right now. Just go home and sit tight, and I'll meet you there later." Without giving her room to argue, Malachi gave her a short and sweet kiss before dropping her into the shadows beneath them, sending her right to their bedroom at the Nightfall base. His body armor became glued to his body a few moments later, and he leapt out of the window into the watery streets below. As soon as he made the decision to appear, so did they. Out of the portal in the sky, amphibious creatures began to fall out one by one. Some stood on two legs, with mottled green skin and fish-like heads with bulbous black eyes. Others were more alarming looking, like miniature leviathans around 40 feet long and with bodies as thick as cement pillars. Their gaping mouths hung open to reveal fangs as long as swords, all dripping with what seemed like a potent venom. Malachi realized that it had been quite a while since he'd gotten to eat any dungeon monsters, so he elected to have a bit of a feast today. "I don't remember liking fish that much before a broken bar. I wonder if this is a part of Bast's blessing?" Recent dietary interests aside, he would still have to be careful about how he subjugated the monsters. His powers over lightning were completely off limits, since there were likely still civilians in the nearby area, and he didn't want to be responsible for accidentally electrocuting someone. Therefore, Mal sprouted 3 pairs of wings from his back as he decided to engage from the air. However, there was something different about his wings since he'd last seen them. The left were a mesmerizing white, while the right were a deep and enchanting black. That's new. Malachi would have spent more time analyzing his body's latest development, but the sea creatures seemed like they were more than a little tired of waiting. With the 10 of his daggers sitting between his knuckles, Malachi hurled them at the approaching fisherman as his wings carried him into the sky. As always, they flew from his grasp like guided projectiles with minds of their own and soared towards the assailants, piercing their eyes, brains and hearts like they were made of warm tofu. Hiss! Two of the Leviathans lunged at Malachi while he was airborne. He raised a brow in surprise when he saw their alarming quickness, as well as the fact that they seemed to be growing somehow. Unsheathing his Ichor from his back, he avoided one of the creatures by shifting his position around and performing a somersault in midair. His body landed gracefully atop the head of the other Leviathan, and he immediately stabbed it in the top of its skull. Letting his body be pulled by gravity, Malachi carved the serpent all the way down its spiked spine, causing it to let out a screech of pain. Dark blood splashed out and threatened to soil Malachi's pristine white wings, but he quickly disappeared in a flurry of shadows before any of it could reach him. He reappeared on top of a nearby building, and he held out his hands to recall his knives back to his grip. Malachi, yo, babe. Looking up, Mal found three very familiar women flying towards him. In what might have been the oddest bearing he'd ever seen, Joanne was flying with two full-grown women in her arms. One was his lovely girlfriend Anna, and the other was his friendly visitor from another world, Nadine. Funny seeing you three together, Mal said. Joanne landed on the rooftop beside him and took in the sight of his wings. The white and black combination not only seeing off alarms in her head, but also stupefying her. This shouldn't be possible. Cassiel had specifically told her that there was no chance for one blessed by an archangel to become a fallen one, and she had personally seen evidence of their supposed fail-safes. So why was this boy still alive? Why did everything about her daughter's boyfriend seem to be so far out of the ordinary? Anna gave her boyfriend a reassuring hug as she gestured to their unwelcome guest with a flick of her head. That one wouldn't leave us alone when she heard we were coming to help you. She just started whining about being bored and making a fuss. That's true, I did, Nadine said happily. Malachi smiled wryly and prepared to offer up a response when a loud scream interrupted his thoughts. Kaiwa, help me! Whirling around, Mal could see a few of the fishermen beginning to climb buildings above them and punch in the windows. One of them had actually succeeded in grabbing onto a woman, and it opened its horrifying mouth wide as it prepared to bite through her with its dull yellow teeth. Malachi immediately flew towards the monster while leaving behind his three reinforcements. Clenching his fist, he punched the fisherman hard without even allowing it to notice his presence, obliterating its head and forcing it to drop the woman. Before she could fall freely from her building into the dangerous water below, she was caught by a young man in black body armor with a skull mask and long dreadlocks. When the two of their eyes met, the both of them raised their brows in surprise as they called out each other's name. Malachi, Celeste. Malachi wasn't at all expecting to find the mother of his ex-girlfriend in mortal danger, and he did not really know how to react upon seeing her. However, the feeling was not unique to him. At such a close proximity to Malachi, Celeste had gone from having her heart beat from fear to attraction in a matter of seconds. She firmly believed that there was no way that this could be good for her health. Malachi carried her up to the roof where the rest of the girls were waiting. Nadine was like a huntress, firing spears of coagulated blood from her wrists into the bodies of the fishmen who were trying to invade the homes of the citizens. Anna would have been helping, but she was more focused on the woman in her boyfriend's arms. When Malachi landed on the rooftop, he placed Celeste down and allowed her to shakily get to her feet. Thank you, Malisha. Broken bar, she stammered. I wasn't expecting this to be the way that we met again. Neither was I, but I'm glad that nothing happened to you. By now, full-blown alarm bells were going off in Annalise's head. Celeste clearly knew Mal, and what was even worse was that she had all the attributes that he liked in a woman of Black or Asian heritage, check, a MILF, super check, short hair, check, an ass that you could sit a cup on top of, another infuriating check. She even had a body that was ripe for cuddling just like Sis, with a soft and cuddly stomach to caress and enormous breasts to lay your head on top of. If she had tattoos and didn't shave downstairs, she would literally be what you got if you took all his favorite parts of all of his girlfriends and put them together. Anna was so upset that the dreaded question flew free her lips before she even knew to stop it. Did you fuck her? Malachi, huh? Celeste, what? Joanne, Anna. Nadine, her too? Why are you passing out dick to everyone but me? Leviathan, Hiss! Another enormous snake-like creature of the deep rose up from the murky waters, intending to swallow up everyone on the rooftop in one bite. Without breaking eye contact with Anna, Malachi conjured up two enormous balls of fire with both hands, one golden and one black. He casually tossed them over his shoulders and into the open mouth of the hungry creature, causing it to let out a wail of pain. The Leviathan dove back into the water hoping that its home would put the flames out, but he was met with no such luck. 3 seconds was all it took for the creature that was over 20 meters long to be burned to ash and sent to rest in agony. "Love, why would you think that?" Malachi asked without a judgy tone. Perhaps because of the soft way he spoke to her, Anna lost all her nerve and started to fiddle with the silver rings on her fingers like she was embarrassed. "I don't know. You guys just seemed kinda friendly with each other and stuff. Plus she's your type, so I thought her broken bar, you know." "This is Melanie's mum. We met at the hospital a few months ago, remember?" Anna recalled Malachi's story about how he took care of the medical bills for an ex-girlfriend out of a sense of obligation. She also remembered how he told her about meeting the girl's mother, but she had no knowledge of what she looked like. Had she known, she would have definitely been more jealous at the time of hearing that story. "I'm his type." Celeste felt like she needed to sit down within a few seconds or she was going to hurt her head when she inevitably fainted. Honestly, why do you have to react like this all the time?" Joanne asked exhaustedly. "I still remember when you asked him the same thing about me. I'm still suspicious that you'll try to jump on him one day though, so that's why I like to keep you two as far away from each other as possible." Anna admitted. "I can assure you, the last thing I want in my life right now is a man, thank you very much." "Yay, right now, but what about after that?" Anna asked accusingly. Joanne had no time to respond before Malachi suddenly pulled his girlfriend away. Truth be told, he liked when she was jealous, so he didn't offer up any comments to chastise her. Instead he pulled his mask down to give her a short kiss on the cheek and a firm squeeze on the butt. "You know that what I have now is all that I could ever need. So come help me, and then we can talk about silly shit later." "Oh okay." The two lovers jumped off the roof holding hands as they fell into the invading force of enemies below. The tattoos on Anna's back glowed for a brief second before a pair of blood-red wings left her shoulder blades. With grace like that of a swan, she flew alongside Malachi and started to obliterate the fishmen with her bare fists. Meanwhile the three women were left atop the roof, each with different areas of focus on their minds. Nadine was still shooting down the monsters who were pouring out of the gate. Meanwhile Celeste's eyes were flickering back and forth between her and Joanne. The leader of the Dark Angels was on a communication device, checking the ETA of her disaster relief squad. Although she pretended to be focused on that, she was admittedly having a hard time with her daughter's words. She still had yet to heal from everything that Alex had done to her, and as a result she couldn't even think about being touched by another man. But when the day came that she was no longer broken and she was ready to move on with her life, what would she want? Who would she want? Ordinarily she would have told herself that she could just focus on work or drinking Broken Bar. For some reason that didn't seem like it was going to do the trick anymore. Unconsciously, her eyes flickered to the back of the young man in black armor who was flying in the air battling against a group of 3 Leviathans. As quickly as her eyes landed on him, they were redirected back towards her device. She didn't get to be selfish like that. Not after how she'd lived the past 20 years. Malachi twirled his claw in his palm until he was holding it like a spear. Hurling it as hard as he could, his weapon punctured clear through the underside of one of the Leviathans and blew a massive hole in the back of its neck, killing the creature instantly. His claw did not lose the slightest bit of momentum and carried itself right into the body of the one behind it, stapling the creature to a nearby building. Holding out his hands, Malachi grabbed onto the creature's very own shadow. He made a gesture like he was forcing its mouth open, and kept stretching his arms further and further apart. The creature began to panic as its upper and lower jaws were literally ripped apart, and the two halves of its body were peeled away from each other like a piece of string cheese. Dark purple blood and guts fell into the murky water and further darkened its already questionable color, and the creature's two halves quickly fell behind it. Malaki held out his hand and his weapon came flying back to his palm, allowing him to return it to its sheath that sat across his back. With this area now clear, Malaki turned around to look for Anna and surveil her progress. He found her not far from him, hovering in the air and holding two dead fishermen by their necks. Her beautiful face had splotches of dark purple blood on it, and the white sleeveless tee she'd been wearing got soaking wet, allowing one to see her black bra underneath. She dropped the two enemies coldly into the water just as she saw her lover flying towards her rather quickly. "Oh, I'm done, babe. I was just thinking though, what weapon do you think would be good for MMF?" Uncaring of the fact that Anna was wet and had blood on her face, Malaki immediately grabbed her by the waist and brought his lips towards hers. She spent a few seconds struggling to escape his iron-like grasp before eventually relinquishing herself to it and allowing him to do as he pleased. Although, she couldn't exactly say that she was not also enjoying this treatment. "Hey!" Nadine yelled. A broken bar. Both Malaki and Anna waved their hands to shoo her away as they kept kissing each other. "Would you two pay attention? That big guy looks mad and I'm not going to deal with him by myself if I'm not getting rewarded." Finally, Anna and Malaki broke their long kiss, and after glaring at Nadine for a single second, they could see why she was so anxious. A large sea serpent had come out of the portal, but different from the rest of them. This one had 3 heads on top of its body and was much bigger than the rest. Every few seconds, it absorbed more water into its armor-like sand scales and grew larger. Even though it had just shown up, it was already over 40 meters tall. Anna and Malaki were both looking at the creature in surprise, with one very simple question on their minds. "That thing a broken bar, why didn't we feel it show up?" Even if Orochi were to run directly at Malaki in the middle of a filled concert venue, he would still be able to notice it and react accordingly. His senses were just that well developed after becoming his mother's avatar, and since Anna regularly ingested his essence and acclimated it into her body, her senses were almost as sharp as his. So then why hadn't either of them noticed the sea creature coming until it was almost too late? Malaki pulled in Anna by the waist and together the two avoided a well-timed bite that was aimed at them by one of the creature's 3 heads. Finally, Mal seemed to notice just what was wrong with this creature and the reason why he didn't notice it, but it was pretty hard to believe. And even if that was the case for him, it didn't explain why Anna couldn't sense it. "Hey babe. Did you notice anything weird about that thing's attack just now?" he asked. Anna put her hand to her chin as she thought about it for a few seconds and came up with the same crazy and nonsensical answer as Malaki. "Now that you mentioned it, it seems really slow. And I thought that we didn't notice it because we were too busy kissing, but truth be told its aura just doesn't feel that imposing," she admitted. Malaki nodded in amazement, confused by how Anna had managed to reach the same conclusion as him. If he was honest, this thing didn't feel that much more impressive than anything else they had just fought. But why? He was always strong, but he had never been so strong that he could practically ignore the arrival of a boss-level monster before. Even if this thing was around B rank, it still should have set off more than a few alarm bells. And another strange detail was that his girlfriend remained equally oblivious. Anna and the girls were tough too, but they were still new to their blessings and weren't quite as powerful as him yet. But what if they were closer to him than he thought? He wanted to be sure. "Anna, do you think you could beat that thing on your own?" Malaki asked suspiciously. The young woman in his arms looked at the creature for around a solid 5 seconds before nodding. "Yay, I think I can. I'm just worried about that venom though." "I can give you a hand with that if you like." With a simple mental command, shadows solidified and rushed toward the open mouth of the 3-headed leviathan. They encased its venomous fangs like oversized mouth guards, preventing the beast from spreading its poison anywhere. Malaki thought that he had done good, but Anna gave him a playful nudge in the ribs and shook her head wryly. "Babe, you don't have to tee things up for me all the time. You've already done so much for me, now you just have to let me succeed or fail on my own, or else. Why do I even have these powers in the first place?" she asked. Not giving him a moment to say anything, Anna shook herself free of his grasp and did a freewheel through the air. "Let me show you that I can make you proud, okay? Keep your eyes on my ass." As she left him with a teasing remark, She finally unfurled her vengeful red wings and flew at the giant sea monster without showing the slightest traces of fear. That girl. Her ass does look good in those jeans though. Mal thought as he freed the creature's teeth. Shaking his head free of degenerative thoughts, he landed on the roof beside Nadine, Joanne, and Celeste. Leaning against the railing, he did exactly as he was asked and kept his eyes firmly planted on his girlfriend's behind. "Can you not stare at my daughter's rear so openly while I am right beside you?" Joanne asked in annoyance. "Sorry, Director. I already have my orders." "Shameless brat. I prefer a man in love." "I don't give a damn what you'd prefer." Nadine suddenly joined in on the banter, jumping on top of Malachi's back like she was a little kid. "Damn, I hope the day comes where you look at my butt like that," Nadine said with a pout, not at all hiding her jealousy. "Hope in one hand and shit in the other, then let's see which one fills up faster," Malachi said without looking back. "Jerk." Nadine started squeezing Malachi's neck with her monstrous strength, but since he didn't need air or feel real pain anymore, it did not bother him in the slightest. In the corner, Celeste watched the three of them with something of a happy smile on her face. The man in front of her now was drastically different from that somewhat timid and insecure young guy she met several months ago. And the way he specifically looked at that one young woman with the tattoos and piercings. She could tell that he loved her very much. "Melanie, did he look at you like that too in the past?" she wondered. Anna flew at the rampaging Hydra who was in the process of destroying a building. When it felt her coming, it turned its heads around and opened its three mouths wide. Jets of venom squirted from the glands within its large front fangs, and 6 consecutive blasts traveled right towards Anna. "Babes, watching, gotta do some cool shit," she thought excitedly. Using the last bit of her stored kinetic energy, Anna created a glowing red shield in the air that was just large enough to protect her body. Ignoring the strong jet of poison that was threatening to push her back, Anna closed the distance between herself and the Hydra before she finally dispelled the shield. Now that she was right in front of the beast's snout, she cocked her fist back and punched it as hard as she could. Boom! Despite the alarming size difference between the two, Anna felt the familiar crack of bone as the beast's metal head was thrown back by the sheer force of her blow. The other two heads dove to crush her between them while their leader recovered, but the young woman on red wings simply flew above their reach, causing them to miss wildly. Anna thought she had perfectly avoided any follow-up attack, but she missed the moment where the creature's thick tail came flying out of the water and struck against her body hard. She was immediately sent catapulting backwards into the air, temporarily making her lose her balance. Anna, righting herself in the air, Annalise could see her mother looking like she was about to jump over the railing and help her, but Malachi was holding onto her by the back of her jacket to prevent any interference. Their eyes met in midair and she heard his voice in her head not long after. "That didn't hurt you, right?" "Course not, babe. You know I'm tougher than that," she said with a twinge of vanity. Malachi smiled at her proudly and gestured for her to continue. "Remember, give as good as you get." Of course, that last attack had left Anna with a fair amount of kinetic energy at her disposal. Even though it didn't actually hurt, the fact was that she had just taken a strike from a tail the size of a building. Something like that was bound to give her plenty of power to play with. Anna's entire body started to glow like a red light bulb. The serpent had finally recovered from its earlier assault, and it looked to be pretty upset that one of the heads that Anna had punched with all her might was now crooked and had a pretty bad nosebleed. It let out a horrible roar that should have deafened anyone within the nearby radius, and it began to rush at Anna like she was its most hated enemy. Coincidentally, Anna also flew like a bullet towards the multi-headed serpent, but she would not aim for its heads as she had last time. Instead she had a different target in mind. Focusing on the chest where the three heads were conjoined, Anna focused her power into her arm and clenched her fist until it seemed likely that she was going to break it. Ha! Boom! Throwing out a fist, Anna expelled all of her stored-up kinetic energy into her punch, causing a massive shockwave to ripple outward from the point of collision. The Hydra did not even have a moment to process how it died as its entire chest was completely obliterated, sending chunks of blood, scales, and flesh everywhere. Anna hovered in the air, slightly out of breath and holding the arm she'd used for the last attack. She'd never released that much energy at once before, and now it seemed like she was paying for it. The bones in her left arm felt like they'd been broken, and not in their usual quick healing kind of way. She felt a gust of wind blow past her, and soon her boyfriend was scooping her out of the air, returning her to her rightful place in his arms. "You did great." "Is your arm okay?" he asked, clearly trying to hide his worry. Anna smiled at him harmlessly and immediately put his mind at ease. "Yay, that's what I get for trying to show off in front of you and my mom anyway. I just didn't want you geese to think you always had to protect me." "Well, you definitely showed us, but we're still going to look out for you. You're all either of us have." Anna wouldn't admit just how happy those words made her to hear, but Mal knew the truth anyway. But on another note, he was really surprised by just how easily she had dispatched the creature. Her initial aptitude assessment said she was around an A rank, and yet she was taking down B rank gate bosses on her own. Things like that don't just happen to those who aren't blessed by primordials, no matter how talented they might be. He wondered just what might be separating her and the girls from the rest of the pack, but he had a feeling he might know. He couldn't wait for the next time his mother decided to descend onto this world, as he had a great many things to ask her. As Malachi held the slightly injured Anna in his arms, they suddenly felt a multitude of incoming presences approaching at a high speed. Looking over his shoulder, Malachi found 6 helicopters steadily approaching the area. In the center, almost as if it was being protected, there was a white helicopter that looked more like it was designed for carrying civilians than soldiers. "What the fuck, a Broken Bar? Why is he here?" Broken Bar. Malachi wasn't sure when Joanne had appeared in the air beside he and Anna, but he wasn't really unsettled by her appearance. "Friend of yours?" "Not quite, you brat." "Not at all," Joanne muttered. The white helicopter came closer and closer to the flying humans until it landed on top of the building closest to them. After a few seconds, a man stepped out from a door on the side. Wearing a standard dark blue suit with a white shirt and a tie, he almost looked indistinguishable from a regular salaryman. He was an older gentleman with skin that had begun to sag a bit in certain places and a head of salt and pepper hair. His blue eyes and unassuming smile were expertly practiced and perfected, a side effect of having a job that almost relies solely upon your likability to others. He waved his hand in a friendly manner at the group of 3 who were still in the sky. Anna had retracted her wings into her back already, so to him it looked like Malachi had just saved her after she'd gotten injured. "Does he, a Broken Bar, want to speak to us?" Malachi asked. "He does." "Let's go," answered Joanne. "We don't work for him, so why do we have to go?" Anna asked from Mal's arms. "Because we're all friends and family here. So that means when I'm miserable you two have to share in it," Joanne said stubbornly. "I don't know if I like that stipulation." "Tough shit, you're coming." Joanne subtly yet forcefully placed her arm on Malachi's shoulder, pushing him down to the rooftop where the president remained waiting. Once they were in earshot, the well-dressed older man started to clap his hands together like he was giving the group a round of applause. "Incredible. Incredible. We were expecting for there to be a fair amount of monsters left to take care of, but it appears as though you didn't need to wait for us." At first, he turned towards Director Joanne and gave her a hearty handshake. "I'm curious as to why you arrived out here, Mr. President." "I don't believe that you are a part of my subjugation and relief team," she said robotically. Yes, I'm not, but when I got the alert about a gate break at this location I just felt I had to come here for myself and help the people however I could." 2 breaks in one state in under a year is practically unheard of, you know. Malachi's eyes briefly became complicated as he realized a fact he hadn't had the time to think about yet. This was the second gate break to occur and it was in the same state as the last. Normally, things like this occur every once a year or so and never in the same place twice. It felt like the world was slowly but surely reaching the end of its countdown. "But Director, you've been holding out on me, a Broken Bar," the president said in an accusatory manner. "Because you didn't tell me, a Broken Bar, that you knew the Malachi Saint. I mean, wow. And you were one of the young ladies from the gala. I saw you on television." Beaming like a giddy 8th grader, the president stuck out both of his hands for both Mal and Anna to shake. "Making niceties, The two of them accepted the handshakes without much thought as the president continued to butter up Mal. My daughters are real big fans. You know, they are just going to lose their minds when I tell them that I met their hero in the middle of a battlefield. Think I could get your autograph? Aha, Broken Bar, sure. Think you could do me one favor first though? Pardon? What's that? Malachi made a grabbing gesture with his hands and the wind was filled with sound of several screams before the bodies of several men from the rooftops were yanked up by dark tendrils of shadow. Sniper guns with bullets specifically designed to kill Blessed fell into the water, and thousands of dollars were wasted in an instant. Malachi was trying his best not to lash out, but this was really too much. It was lucky that Luna had told him she wanted him to control his emotions better, or else he may have accidentally trussed the president and these men off the roof. You can point guns at me all you like and it won't faze me. But doing it while you see my girls standing here is some shit that I'm not going to let go. Thank your star-spangled banner that I haven't killed nobody yet. He's so hot when he's like these. A Broken Bar, Anna thought dreamily. Who is your girl, you bastard? Joanne roared with a red face. Pow! The director punched the young man hard enough to form a dent in his chest. But he of course remained unbothered as he looked at her. I didn't mean it like that for you. I just meant you're like my homegirl. I'm too damn old for you to call me something like that, Malachi. Would you prefer compadre, twin, or bestie for resty instead? A Broken Bar, I swear to God I am going to knock your jaw off your body. Homegirl it is then. Fuck you. They are closer than I thought. A Broken Bar. The president was unsure when he would find a good time to jump in this conversation as he held his hands up as a show of non-aggression. Please, I apologize for them. It's just that in the world's current climate they feel that they can never be too safe. You see, they meant no disrespect, I assure you. Put my guys down, Malachi. I don't want to have to meet any wives and families this weekend, Joanne asked. Mal didn't look like he was about to put the men down until she asked him to, and he lowered all the soldiers to the rooftop without damaging a hair on their pretty heads. That's a good boy, she said sarcastically. The hell would you call me something like that for? He asked. You've got cat powers, don't you? She replied. A Broken Bar. Malachi decided that for the sake of time he wouldn't debate with Joanne about this any further. He definitely did not like it when she called him a good boy. Not at all. He had truly never hated anything more, and that is the God's honest truth. My, what an amusing relationship the two of you seem to have, the president said as he tried to move past the previous awkwardness. And it seems you're quite capable. It is no wonder that all those guilds wanted to pay a pretty penny for you. Malachi remained unmoved by the compliment as he waved it away with his hand. That stuff is in the past. I'm not in the guild business anymore. The ears of the president twitched as he realized they'd finally come to the part of the conversation that he had been hoping for. Ah yes, a Broken Bar, it truly is nasty business that. I know of your Broken Bar more personal relationship with Luna Autumn. Perhaps you could convince her to reinstate Immortal Moon. I truly believe that it would be for the good of all. That's not something for me to interfere with, Malachi said sternly. She built that place from the ground up, and it is her decision alone when it comes to an end. But isn't it such a waste to disband an entire guild over a few weapons? Weapons? Malachi asked in confusion. As soon as he asked the question, he heard not only Joanne's but the president's heartbeat start to speed up. He immediately knew that there was something he wasn't privy to. Nothing. It seems I've misspoken, the president said with a polite smile as he backed away. Seems I must be going now. It really was a pleasure to. Nadine. 12 seconds after Malachi called the name of a random woman, Nadine appeared in a gust of wind with the mature Celeste on her back. Yo, you called? I need you to get some information for me, he said as he stared at the president. The old man sensed something off about this beautiful woman who appeared from out of nowhere. For starters, she was too beautiful to be considered human, and her eyes were as captivating as they were unsettling. Oh really? I don't mind. But I'll be expecting a reward for this. You can at least give a bitch some head or something. What have I told you about watching TikTok and bet? Malachi roared. They're my eyes and I'll do what I want with them. Nadine placed the pale and shaking Celeste on the ground before she walked up to the president with swaying hips. Now, let's see what's in that little old head of yours, shall we? Bianca, and then, he did this thing with his hips that felt really, good, and I started to see stars. And then Luna, did he play with you breasts while he took you from behind? It was nice, right? Yes. Oh, did he get a chance to use his mouth on you while you lie down helplessly? It really increases my sensitivity and feels so much better than normal. Bianca, I wanna try that next. But how do I ask for it exactly? A broken bar. Luna, just be crude like Anna and spread your legs on the countertop. It all works the same. Got it. In the Nightfall base, Bianca was lying on her back with her head in Luna's lap, and her feet in Sis. Since these three were as thick as thieves, she naturally ran to tell them about her magical yet animalistic first time with Malaki a few hours earlier. It was a really cute scene, and both of the mature beauties gave her quite a few new things to try later. Only after she could walk normally again, of course. Well, now that you've finally taken that last step, you can start to join us in our night activities, Luna said playfully. Bianca's glasses began to fog up as she briefly recalled the times she'd peeked through the door to watch their group bonding time. Bodies, so many bodies. And sweat and cum and moaning. A broken bar. Noticed that Bianca started to get warm and she gave Luna a chastising nudge in the ribs. Don't tease her like that. She's only just had her first time today. Yes, sorry. Rolled her eyes and took Bianca's slender hand and smiled at her warmly. Don't worry, Bianca. I know from personal experience that it feels like a really big step, so just enjoy things at your own pace, okay? No one is going to rush you. Oh, okay. A broken bar. Thank you. At that moment, a bundle of shadows rose up in the living room and Malaki appeared with 3 additional women in tow. Anna was hanging on to him like a koala while Nadine hung off his back and he held Joanne by the ear like she was a second grader. I'm not even ready to have a fivesome yet, so a 7-way is completely off limits. Bianca yelled at the top of her lungs. Completely caught off guard, Malaki and everyone he brought with him stared at the young woman like she had just grown a second head. A broken bar. Don't even know where to begin, Mal muttered. Bianca sweetie, why don't you go lie down and take a little nap, okay? Said gently. Oh. Okay then. After the young woman got up and left the room, Malaki shook his head a few times to free his mind of dangerous images. He refocused his mind on being upset, and stared at Luna with a smile that was not a smile. Love, do you have something you'd like to tell me? Yeah, broken bar. Don't think so. Anna and Joanne winced. Meanwhile, Nadine's eyes lit up like she was waiting for this moment all her life. Yes, when he gets mad at her, I'll get to fill in her spot, she thought with glee. Malaki released Joanne and Nadine before placing Anna on the kitchen counter while he went rummaging through the supplely closet for a sling and an ice packet. Oh, for real? That's crazy. A broken bar. On a completely unrelated note, whatever happened to those weapons we were supposed to get from our last raid? Even from the kitchen, Malaki heard Luna's heart start to beat harder. She immediately looked at Joanne to see if she'd been the one to spill the beans, only to see her hold up her hands innocently. Don't look at me. The president showed up at the sight of the break and let it slip. He asked that weird girl for help and she hypnotized him or something. Who is the weird girl? I have a name, I'll have you know. Nadine roared. Don't care. Nadine grumbled in annoyance as she tried to think of ways to get this woman to have an accidental death. I'll remember these. A broken bar. Watch your neck, bitch. What? Please stop. Luna sighed as she stood up from the couch and walked over to Malaki. I'm sorry that I kept it from you. Are you upset with me? As Malaki tended to Anna's arm, he maintained a rather stony-faced expression as he bandaged her up. Luna started to feel a little bit worried as she placed her delicate hand on his arm. I was just worried that you would feel the need to do something silly like run off and wage war with the United States government because I was slighted. I did not mean to be deceptive. A broken bar. Truth be told, Malaki was upset enough to give the government more to worry about than Arya's, and precisely because he felt like that, he knew that she must have been justified in her worry. When it came to the women in his life, he could only stand to see them receive the fairest of treatment or none at all. He probably would have thrown the president into space earlier if it weren't for the small voice in his head that told him that it wouldn't be what Luna wanted. I get it, our broken bar, just don't keep things from me. Alright? You don't have to worry about me flying off the handle at our every inconvenience, he said finally. I understand. Does this mean that I am forgiven? A broken bar still deciding. He lied. Luna gave him a rare innocent look as she dropped her hand just below his belt buckle. I'll apologize however you want me to. Does that help at all? Malachi felt a bit of his rationality staring to leave his mind and enter another area. Holding his hand out, he sent Joanne and Nadine out of their living quarters with the flick of his finger. I would have settled for a kiss, but since you offered me something better I won't refuse. Once Anna was all fixed up, he lifted Luna over his shoulder and carried her to one of the spare bedroom before shutting the door. The young goth girl jumped down from the counter and started to follow them when suddenly placed her hand on her shoulder to stop her. Anna Broken Bar, maybe just leave this one to them this time. Despite her rough exterior, she clearly looked crestfallen. But yeah, Broken Bar wanted to get eaten out just a bit. I get that, but you haven't had any disagreements with Malachi yet, so you don't know Buta. Broken Bar makeup sex with him is very different from regular sex, explained. How so? Well, it's a Broken Bar's face started to turn red and she started to pull Anna back towards the kitchen to avoid the subject. How about I make you something to eat? Name whatever you want and I'll prepare it for you. I'm a Broken Bar BLT and maybe some fries and lemonade. Okay, sure. While you're cooking I'm gonna go watch Luna get fucked. Anna. The young girl shrugged her shoulders helplessly as she prepared to offer a retort, only to be interrupted by beautiful laughter that she would recognize anywhere. Turning around, the two beauties found Nyx sitting on the couch, smiling at them both fondly. I've truly missed the two of you. Where else can I go to experience laughter as fulfilling as this? Mariana Trench, Tartarus. In a highly advanced underwater facility located at the deepest reaches of the earth, the world's most dangerous criminals are held. Without exception, all of the occupants are blessed, with rankings from anywhere from the common B to the singular SS. Without a specialized submarine that comes only once every 2 weeks to deliver food and amenities, there exists no way to enter or escape. And even then, everything brought in is highly regulated and inspected at a predetermined checkpoint. Pat-downs, body cavity searches, wands. There is no method that one will not go through in order to step into this prison. No matter how many times one may have visited before. The guards alternate in 4-week shifts, with 2 weeks to spend on the surface followed by 4 weeks of living down here alongside the inmates. Today, the shift change was taking place and the guards could not have been more excited as they waited around in the hangar for the incoming sub to finish docking. Once the giant metal structure was locked firmly in place, a hatch opened up in the side to reveal the guards who would be taking their place. Only a Broken Bar this time. There was a problem. Everyone was dead, and the floor of the submarine was slick with the blood of the guards who were lying without their heads or lower halves. The culprit of this onslaught was a man with pristine white robes and long golden hair whose face they all recognized easily from the numerous briefings that had been held. Tartarus. Cue her Broken Bar. It's nicer than I expected. Oh, open fire. Shoot him, now. Sure, knock yourselves out. Arias remained standing with his hands behind his back as he watched the 60-odd guards pull their weapons out of their holsters and start shooting. Bullets started to fly throughout the air by the dozens. Meanwhile Arias simply stood there motionlessly with a familiar smile and no signs of being harmed. No matter how many times he was shot, the bullets either missed him entirely and bounced off the titanium walls of the submarine or passed through his body harmlessly, exposing the golden visage underneath. What is that? He's not falling. Arias feigned ignorance and placed his hands on his hips like he was embroiled in a real conundrum. That can't be right. Now why aren't your weapons working? A Broken Bar, they've been giving you guys the cheap shit down here. Huh? You probably couldn't kill an old lady on life alert with those guns. Grenade. Oh, now it just feels like you're overcompensating. Before the grenade could be thrown towards the sub, Arias decided that he'd been playing for long enough. Holding out his hand, he caught the projectile with his telekinetic power and held it in his center of the assembled guards. Bang! When the bomb went off, Only a couple died instantly while the rest were sent sprawling onto the ground from the explosion. Arias snapped his fingers and a flurry of blades of light appeared at his side before piercing the bodies of everyone present. With the hall that now quiet, Arias stepped out of the sub and looked at all of the corpses distastefully. If only you had a blessed hair broken bar, you lot might have fared better. Truth be told, Tartarus used to have quite a lot of blessed guards who weren't in service to any guilds, just the government. But when Arias and his faction came into the spotlight, suddenly having a bunch of blessed guard other blessed didn't seem like such a good idea, and they were reassigned. To be honest, the leader of the New Day didn't believe that he or his followers could shoulder the blame for this change. If it was so easy to tear apart the trust between two groups, then clearly there mustn't have been any in the first place. Arias breezed through the field of corpses without a care and simply melted down any security doors. When he finally reached his destination, he was in a long corridor lined with cells that had prismatic doors and little amenities inside. The worse crimes an inmate was in for, the less things they had in their cell. In one block there was a man with nothing in his cell but a toilet. But judging by the thin and decrepit state of his body, he hadn't been fed in a while, so it wasn't like he was using his one amenity either. Arias sucked in a deep gust of air into his imaginary lungs before screaming throughout the entire prison block, "Hello all! I've come to ask, do any of you feel like you have been rehabilitated and are ready to serve a grander purpose?" It was 4 hours before Malachi stepped out of the bedroom he'd pulled Luna into. Since he was home and living with only his women now, he emerged completely nude as he prepared to go straight from this bedroom to the shower. But he would learn too late that he was making a fatal mistake. Right in his very own living room, his mother and 2 of his girlfriends were sitting on his couch watching some trashy reality romance competition on TV and eating BLT sandwiches. "Oh hey, baby boy. Did you miss me?" Shit. Reaching inside of his shadow storage, he quickly pulled on a pair of boxers as he tried to recover some of his dignity. When did you get here and why couldn't I feel you?" "I was hiding." "Why? You seemed busy." "I never interrupt when you and the girls are intimate together. I just watch and wait for you to finish." "What?" Anna, and Malachi all looked like they were utterly horrified by the fact that their moments of depraved passion had been witnessed. On the other hand, Nyx merely shrugged and popped another French fry into her mouth. "What?" "We're Greek, darling. We like to have fun." "A broken bar. I get that, but it still makes me horribly uncomfortable, Mar. You should loosen up." "I was thinking about joining you one of these times. Do you think you'd be interested?" "No." "God. Why?" Malachi's firm and dramatic refusal put a small frown on the face of the ancient goddess. "I feel hurt by such a refusal, son." "Are you insinuating that your mother is past her prime?" "I'm saying that my mother is my mother," he said adamantly. Nyx finally remembered that Malachi was a normal human a little over a year ago. Of course he wasn't going to have a sexual interest in her. She wondered if that would be something that would fade away in time or if he would remain forever obstinate to her advances like Nemesis was. She was really hoping for the former. "Never mind that, come let me hug you." Nyx suddenly floated from her seat and wrapped her arms around Malachi. "Ma, I should probably take a shower before." "No, you're fine, dear." Nyx suddenly grabbed Malachi by the face and stared at him with a mixture of love and concern. "My son broken bar, you have no idea just how much worry you've put me through these last few weeks. Do you?" "Ma?" Nyx placed one of her hands directly into the center of Malachi's chest. "Don't you remember, dearie? You're a nightmare now, albeit a hybrid of one." "Yeah, broken bar. I'm still not sure how that happened though." "Is that what's got you so worried?" Nyx nodded solemnly as if giving him this news was breaking her own heart. "We a broken bar have to keep this a secret for now. If the other hires learn exactly what you are before you can learn to harness your abilities, they will see you as a liability instead of an asset." "A broken bar, why don't you?" Malachi asked. He was fully aware of what he had become, of the sort of monster he had lurking inside of him. It terrified even him to some degree, so the thought of others being okay with his new state of being was more than a little hard to accept. But as a response, Nyx simply cupped his face in her hands and smiled at him beautifully. "You are my son and I know your heart. From the moment that you and your sister accepted me, I was prepared to never forsake you for any reason. You becoming something new will not change that. Malaki looked like he was on the verge of crying tears even though he wasn't capable. He embraced his mother once more and held her tightly for a long time, allowing something cracked within him to heal. Thank you. There is no need to thank me, my son. This is what a mother should do. Besides, in this way something that I've taken from you can be returned. You can have a child again. It will be different and utterly unlike anything the world has ever seen, but it will be yours. Not only Malaki, but Anna and S also felt their jaws drop to the floor. Quick, somebody tell me when the last time I got my period was. Anna, we're all synced up, it was 3 weeks ago, remember? S reminded. Fuck. I'm gonna go buy a test. Nyx giggled mischievously as she waved away the concerns of the two girls. The two of you can relax since he can't get you pregnant like this. Like what? Like this. Nyx took her finger and jammed it into Malaki's chest, and it of course passed through harmlessly. As my avatar he is only boundless night. But nightmares are flesh and blood and thus are capable of procreation. A bit surprising to hear. Huh? Are you telling me a broken bar if I want to have a baby a broken bar I have to sleep with the girls a broken bar as a monster a broken bar? Malaki asked carefully. Don't speak about yourself that way, my baby boy will never be a monster. That's a broken bar really not the point here, ma broken bar. Malaki felt like his world was spinning around and his knees were about to give out from underneath him. Briefly, he recalled the story Bianca and Luna told him about what had happened when he changed inside the gate, and he felt like he was going to be sick. What if he hurt them? Honestly, it wasn't worth it to him if he had to have a child by spilling even a drop of their blood. And then there was also the question of what exactly the baby would be. He knew that you were supposed to love your child no matter what, but he at least wanted a baby that he could walk around with without scaring others. But at that moment, Luna finally came out of the bedroom. Like Mal, she was completely naked, but she was also covered in bite marks, black gel, and her ass was as red as a tomato. She honestly looked like she shouldn't have been out of bed so soon, but she couldn't stay put. Not after what she'd just overheard. Starting directly at Nyx, her eyes contained unveiled hope and the tiniest fragments of disbelief. Mother-in-law a broken bar. What you just said a broken bar, is it true? Luna wasn't as over the idea of having a child as she wanted Malaki to believe. But because she knew that their sudden loss of an opportunity had nothing to do with him, she never said anything about it. The last thing that she wanted was to ever make him feel worse about it than he already did. And so, Luna had been dealing with the pain of this loss all on her own. But after hearing Nyx's words, she was unable to contain herself and desperately grabbed onto this small thread of hope. Malaki quickly grabbed a blanket from the couch and draped it around the shaking woman. What are you doing up? You still need to. I'm fine, I just need to know if what your mother said is true. Luna pushed past Malaki and stood in front of the waiting goddess. Her eyes were filled with hope, and she took her hands like he was about to start begging for a reason to hang on. Please tell me a broken bar that what you've just said is true. It is, my darling girl. Please don't look so despondent, it breaks my heart to see. Nyx said sweetly. Tears started to run down from Luna's face in droves and she threw her arms around the ancient goddess. Nyx was admittedly surprised, but she accepted the embrace warmly and rubbed her back. Sweet girl a broken bar, are you not concerned about the fact that you will have to lay with him as a nightmare? Of course not. Luna suddenly separated from Nyx and ran to Malaki and embraced him firmly. I don't care what he is or what he might turn into. I just want him to be the father of my child. Are you sure about this? Malaki asked worriedly. You don't know what I could. I know that you wouldn't hurt me. You cannot try to talk me out of this. I won't lose this chance again, darling, she cried. Malaki felt his own expression contort into one of pain. His worries and concerns were valid just as her longing for this wish to come true was. But he wanted her to be safe above all else, and she was willing to sacrifice anything if it meant that she could have a baby, his baby. This truly was an uncomfortable situation for both of them to be in. Guys, a broken bar, we have time to figure this out, suddenly said. She stood up from her place on the couch and embraced the both of them. At the end of the day, Everyone here loves each other and only wants the best for one another. There is a way for you both to have a child and ensure that Luna remains safe and healthy. We just have to find it together." As expertly as always, had alleviated the worries and stress of both of them with only a few words and a gentle tone. The eyes of the two of them softened up immensely and they immediately brought their lips together to act as confirmation of their commitment. Malachi held both girls fondly as he started to plan out next steps. In order to have a child, he had to get control over that thing inside of him first and everything else could fall in later. However, there was one important thing that he was still forgetting about. His hand lightly brushed against Luna's stomach, and he looked towards his mother for more hope. "Any chance that you've got some secret method to heal that part of her?" Nyx shook her head, much to the dismay of Malachi Luna. However, they were quickly able to get a hold over themselves. They already had received a great deal more hope today than what they thought possible, so that was more than enough for them. As long as they had one half of the equation solved, they could focus on solving the rest later at their own pace. No matter how long it took, the two of them were determined to. "I don't have any method to heal you, but you don't really need to ask me since you already have one." A broken bar. "A broken bar? A broken bar? Pardon?" Nyx shrugged and pointed above her head up into the ceiling. "Just ask that busty vampire woman you brought back from the gate for help. Using her would be a lot quicker than going to hunt for an item or potion." "Nadine? What can she do?" Anna asked. "Her race have stellar regenerative capabilities that are far beyond that of you blessed. Just ask her to turn Luna, and then she will also have the ability to regenerate her organs." Nyx explained this like it was obvious. Had no one truly thought of this as a solvable scenario? Judging by the looks on the faces of everyone else in the apartment, it didn't seem like that was the case. "Who knew?" "Yeah, broken bar can be whole again," Luna said shakily. "You have never not been whole, my dear. But if you are referring to the ability to regrow your womb, then yes. Should you desire it, you can take that step and have it returned to you." Luna's knees gave out from underneath her as she fell to the ground, allowing Malachi to catch her. It was clear judging by the look in her eyes that she was completely frozen with disbelief, and her boyfriend wasn't exactly any better. "Ma broken bar, can you give us a minute to process all this and sort ourselves out?" Malachi asked. Nyx smiled at him sweetly as she nodded in acceptance. "Of course, I'll leave all of you to talk about this amongst yourselves. In the meantime, I'm going to go visit your sister and send her my love." Nyx's body started to break apart right before the eyes of everyone present, and a moment later she vanished from the living room. Once she was gone, a silence persisted among the group for a while. Malachi held Luna in his lap as the two of them sat in the ground, both of them locked deep into their thoughts. "Anna broken bar? Yay. Luna? Do you need something?" I'm fine, it's just I need you to do me a favor." "Can you run upstairs and grab Nadine for me a broken bar? I have some things I would really like to ask her." Aubrey took a deep breath as she tried to calm her raging heartbeat. She stared with a dry mouth at the furry four-legged creature opposite her, and the resolve that she'd been building up threatened to come crashing down. "I can't do it," she cried as she turned around. Through a large glass window, she could see Rose and Aisha watching her in a viewing room. "Aubrey, Mr. Needles has a brain tumor the size of a golf ball. He's already going to die," Rose reasoned. "There is nothing that your powers will do to him that isn't already happening at a much slower and more painful rate," Aisha added. Aubrey turned her attention back to the old golden retriever lying on the metal table. Even if the girls didn't tell her about the dog's condition, she knew that this animal was not long for this world. She could just a broken bar feel it. The aura of death slipping off the dog in waves was so terrible that she doubted that it would even make it through the week. And yet, she was still having a great difficulty in coming to terms with harming such a cute animal. She couldn't help it if she was a dog person. The dog looked at her with bloodshot eyes and let out a painful whimper as it lay pitifully on its back. Aubrey bit her lip uncomfortably as she stared back into the pained eyes of the dog and held out her hands. "I'm sorry, big guy. I hope you lived a good life while you had it." Focusing on the power over death that she had been given by her older brother Thanatos, she willed her powers to do something, anything. Since she had never tried to use this power before, She was unsure of what exactly she was supposed to make happen. As of now, she really had no specific knowledge in mind, just a fervent wish to see this poor animal reach eternal rest. And somehow, it seemed like that was more than enough. A power like that of a swirling black mist encircled her delicate fingers and turned her nails permanently dark. She gave the dog a single reassuring pat on the head and whispered the words "good boy" as a tear fell from her eyes. The dog started to have more and more difficulty keeping its eyes open, and it finally let its tail droop onto the metal table. Aubrey smiled wryly as she continued to cry. As the dog died, she could see flashes of the life it had lived and its most impactful experiences. It had indeed lived a good life from beginning to end. Aubrey heard the sound of a door opening to her left and found her girlfriend running at her quickly. She dispelled the power still lingering on her hands and quickly put them behind her back to avert disaster. What are you doing? We said it was dangerous. I know. But how do you expect me to just sit behind a wall a few feet away when you're clearly in distress? Let me hug you. No. Yes, come here. No. A scene like that of an old cartoon ensued where Aubrey and Aisha ran around in circle around the table. Aubrey was adamant about her unwillingness to let her girlfriend touch her and wouldn't stop running no matter how much Aisha pleaded. She likely would have kept running for forever had she not eventually been caught by a pair of different, equally firm arms. Rose, what are you doing? I'm fine, Aubrey. Just relax. You aren't going to hurt either of us. As the architect of this whole event, she was the one who felt the most guilty. Her father owned a veterinary clinic and was lamenting about the fact that he was going to have to put down a long-time patient, and Rose saw it as an opportunity to help Aubrey practice with her powers for the first time. She had no idea that it would affect the young woman to this degree. I'm sorry, Aubrey. This is really not all my fault, she said. And no, it's not. I had to practice at some point, right? A broken bar? I just wasn't expecting my powers to come with a broken bar. That kind of effect. Aubrey gave both girls a detailed explanation of how she saw the dog's whole life flash before her eyes as she killed it. It was a horribly morbid and tragic experience to undergo. I'm sorry, Rose. A broken bar. Can we just go for today? Aubrey asked. A broken bar? Of course you can. I'll call you later to check on you. Aubrey hugged the gorgeously fit woman once again before taking Aisha's hand and leaving the room. As they left, Rose let her gaze linger on the backs of the two of them for a little while longer, and it was unclear exactly what she was thinking. Fuck a broken bar. I really did just want to help you, Aubrey. As the pair of girls left the veterinary clinic, they remained silent as they held each other's hands and walked to the car. Aisha noticed that Aubrey was consistently trying to pull away from her, but she maintained her firm grip and did not allow her to run away. Baby, a broken bar? You won't hurt me. You've maintained a firm control over your powers all this time, and there is no reason to believe that you would have an incident now. Aubrey softened a bit and finally stopped pulling away from her partner. Okay, a broken bar. Why don't we go and get something to eat? Food always takes your mind off. Oh, far. Broken bar. Who is that? Aisha and Aubrey were rather alarmed to find a woman sitting on the hood of their car. While Aisha did not recognize her, Aubrey did immediately. Mama, I didn't think you would recognize me. I am touched beyond belief, Nix said warmly. It was no surprise that Aisha didn't recognize her, because they were in public. Nix's body had taken on a less conspicuous form. Since physical appearance was nothing to her, she specifically crafted one that would make her look like her human children. She had flawless skin of a light to brown variety with long black hair that had Aubrey's natural curls. Her features were sharp like Malachi's, and she was very clearly the source of his divine looks. Her body was rather voluptuous, and was hidden beneath a normal black sundress instead of the usual one she wore that was made from stars. The only part of her that was inhuman were her eyes. Instead of being normal with pupils, retina, and sclera, they were entirely comprised of darkness with shining stars embedded within. Nix held out her arms and allowed Aubrey to fly into them. After everything that she'd just been through, there could be nothing more healing than her mother's embrace. And now that she was here, there was something that she desperately wanted to ask for. Mama, I need you to help me. With what, dear? You need only name it. I don't want Thanatos power anymore. I want you to give it back to him." Nyx smiled sadly as she cupped Aubrey's face and wiped away her running tears. "My girl, a broken bar, you have no idea just how special you are. The requirements to hold the true power of death are a truly kind heart and a mind capable of understanding and empathizing with all life. Even your brother doesn't meet the criteria to hold it." I don't care. I just don't want to hurt anyone on accident," she said firmly. "Aubrey, you have to trust in yourself and give yourself more credit. The truth is that if you haven't had an accident with your power by now, then you aren't going to. Your power is now just as much yours as it is your elder brother's, and that means that you alone have total control of it." "Are you sure a broken bar?" "Well, if you sneeze too hard then you might have a little accident. But what? Kidding." Nyx kissed Aubrey on the forehead lightly and pulled her in for another tender embrace. "I know your power may feel scary, but the truth is that you are more than capable of overcoming it. All you need is a little time and patience, okay?" "A broken bar, will you help me?" Aubrey asked quietly. Nyx felt like such a question was more than a little silly and she rubbed her back as she laughed. "Of course I will. You are my beloved daughter after all." After Nyx finally got her daughter to calm down, she finally exchanged greetings with Aisha. The white-haired young lady seemed to be more than a little surprised every time that she saw the ancient goddess, and now was truly no different. "Hello Mom. It is lovely to see you as always, and I must say that your new appearance is enchanting." "Oh, are you trying to collect mother and daughter alike, dear Aisha?" "And no Mom, I would never." "That's the right answer," Aubrey said as she folded her arms across her large chest. Possessiveness seemed to run in the family as she was looking at her girlfriend with eyes that could kill. "Don't be jealous, my dear. Why don't we all have fun together?" Nyx offered. "We can even invite that little Rose girl who seems to like you and, Mama." "What are you saying?" "And Rose and I don't have that kind of relationship." A foursome with the goddess, a broken bar. "I think that I am going to get a nosebleed." Aisha muttered. Nyx chuckled at Aisha's supposed delirium and took Aubrey under her arm. "Why? You don't want to bond with me?" "That Rose girl seems like your type as well, so I don't understand what the big deal is about." "That's a little more than bonding, and Rose and I are just friends," Aubrey said shakily. In the back of her mind, she recalled Rose's gentle demeanor, great body, and pretty smile. It seemed like all of these nights of being doted on by her girlfriend had led to her developing a bit of a type. Who knew? But she didn't want a harem like her brother. Keeping up with one woman was already a lot of work. Aubrey looked at Aisha out of the corner of her eye and found her staring back at her, making a sort of "is this something that we need to talk about" look. The younger saint's sister gave her own cheeks a couple of firm slaps to shake her mind of dirty thoughts. "Anyway, I'm not having any threesomes with you, and that's final," she said firmly. Nyx made a disappointed sound as she poked out her bottom lip pitifully. What is a mother to do when neither of her young children want to bond with her? "Did you make this offer to Malaki too?" Aubrey asked as she wrinkled her nose. "Well, of course I did. What greater way exists for me to show my love than to give a part of my being to someone?" "But he didn't indulge in my offering either." Of course he didn't. He has morals." Aisha and Aubrey thought in unison. "I would have propositioned him further, but your brother has his own issues going on right now," Nyx said disappointedly. "Is he all right?" Aubrey was always worried when it came to her brother, and even now her eyes seemed like they were going to explode out of her head. Nyx smiled sweetly as she patted the young girl on the cheek and ran her fingers through her gray hair. "He's fine, my dear. He's just a broken bar trying to figure out next steps for his family, I suppose." Back at the Nightfall base, Anna had just come back from upstairs with Nadine in tow. The bubbly vampire seemed to not notice the rather tense mood in the room, and she flopped right onto the couch like she was already living here. "So comfy," she said giddily. "Nadine, a broken bar, I need to ask you for a big favor," Malaki said. The vampire rolled over and showed him a very unladylike middle finger. "No, I'm not doing any more favors for you. You haven't even rewarded me for the last one." "Fine, just tell me what you want." "You have to carve out a whole day in your schedule to watch the entire Bernie Mac show with me," she said firmly. Malaki had to blink the surprise out of his eyes a few times as he was honestly rather shocked. He was fully expecting her to ask for something that involved him taking his pants off. "Oh, I love that show. Can I watch with you guys?" Anna asked excitedly. "No. If you're there I won't get an opportunity to fuck him." And there it was a broken bar. Whilst restrained Anna so that she didn't crack Nadine's skull open, Malachi was trying to keep his focus on the task at hand. "I'll do it. So broken bar, there really is something else I need your help with." Luna sat in Malachi's lap for comfort as she lowered herself beyond what she ever thought possible. "Actually, Nadine, a broken bar, the favor you would be doing isn't just for Malish a broken bar, it's for me as well." Nadine stopped arguing with Anna as she stared at Luna like she was trying to discern what she would ask for. Luna was normally always graceful and regal, but as of right now she looked more than a little tired and desperate. It was like she was seeing a different person altogether. "Okay, a broken bar, what do you want then?" Luna placed her hand on her stomach and opened up in a way that she hadn't done with anyone else outside of Malachi and the girls. "Yeah, broken bar was attacked a few years ago and the incident took away my ability to have children. But I really love Malachi. So broken bar, I want you to make me a vampire so that I can have that chance given back to me." Nadine looked back and forth between Malachi and Luna while making a stone-faced expression. Eventually, she just closed her eyes and shook her head as she flopped back onto the couch. "You're crazy. I don't know what Malachi is exactly, but I know he isn't alive in the traditional sense. Vampires have low enough fertility rates as it is, so trying to have a baby with him would be a waste on both ends. Malachi has a special method to gain a real body and I don't care about the probability. I would gladly take a 1% chance over the absolute zero I've had for the past 5 years." Nadine maintained a rather nonchalant demeanor as she lay on the couch lazily. "Sure, I understand that. I won't inquire about Malachi's special method since I'm hoping to experience it personally one day. But are you really willing to give up everything that your life has been up until this point just to have a chance to have a child? Being a vampire is totally different from being a human. Sure, our physical bodies are improved, but we don't do well in sunlight, have garlic allergies, and we need to consume a liter of blood every 72 hours. That reminds me, where do you get your blood from?" Malachi asked. "What are those places called?" "Again, a broken bar. They're like food trucks but for blood." Malachi and Anna all made horrified expressions. "Nadine, a broken bar, those are for hospital patients," explained. "I don't know what they could possibly need it for, but I'll be in a lot worse condition than them if I don't drink it." "And since Malachi didn't say I couldn't steal, then it's fair game," she said firmly. Luna was the only one who seemed to be unconcerned and she stood up to move beside Nadine. Pulling her hair behind her head, she offered her neck to the vampire. Without batting an eye, "I've made up my mind, Nadine. I want you to make me a vampire. I don't care about anything else." Nadine seemed to be thinking about something deeply as she stared at Luna's pale neck. It was clear that this conversation had taken her very far away and she was currently having visions from her past. "Nadine? Oh, right. Stay still for me, Luna." This might hurt a bit. When Luna opened her eyes, she was lying underneath the covers in her bedroom at the base. As soon as she took her first conscious breath of air, she felt different. For starters, she didn't actually need the air. She had merely breathed in out of instinct, and not because her body was dependent upon oxygen. It was definitely a strange feeling, but it was far from uncomfortable or tiresome. Another thing was her hearing. It was such a drastic improvement over that of her old body that it wasn't even funny. Despite the top-notch soundproofing in their home, she knew just by listening that she was entirely alone. Anna had left her music playing in her art room, and the fridge was currently producing more ice. Incredibly broken bar. Suddenly, the sound of the elevator opening could be heard and she listened to the excited running of footsteps. In a moment, the vampire Nadine rushed through the door wearing her usual bright and charismatic smile. "Luna, my dear blooded is awake." "You're wow, like a blonde rocket." Nadine flung herself into Luna without waiting for her to prepare for landing. As if she were a puppy, she stared to rub her face against hers while muttering words that poor Luna had no idea how to process. "As I thought, you take after me, huh?" Fangs above, You are so beautiful that I can hardly stand it. Fuck, I'm so proud. Nadine Broken Bar, why are you behaving like this? It's been around 600 years since I last turned anyone, so I suppose that you could say that this entire situation has made me a bit emotional. Wonderful. A Broken Bar. Luna somehow managed to pull herself away from the overly friendly vampire and placed a few pillows between them. How did you know I was awake? Because I'm your maker. The two of us are connected now, in the sense that I can feel your emotional and physical state even from 10 kilometers away. And no matter what, I will always come running towards you if you require my aid. Just like the rest of your family. Luna wasn't 100% sure, but it seemed like Nadine was being incredibly sincere towards her. It made her feel even more wary about her now that she seemed to be able to manipulate her emotionally too. Nadine smiled wryly, like she had heard all of Luna's distrusting thoughts. I know it must all be strange, right? But I hope that this will be a way that I can show you my sincerity. She took one of Luna's hands and placed it directly over her stomach, allowing her to feel more of her body's new changes. Your chances are back, however slim they may be. You can have a child again, Luna. Flashes of disbelief inevitably turned into crying, and then joy. Luna could do nothing but smile beautifully as she laughed, unsure of just how her emotions had taken such a sudden and dramatic turn. Wiping her face of tears, she immediately started looking for her phone to call the one person she had done this for. Where's my phone? I have to call Malaki right now. Once she saw it sitting on the dresser, she immediately lunged for it, only to have Nadine snatch it away at the last second. What are you doing? I've been instructed not to let you touch your phone for a while, at least until everyone else gets back. And why the hell not? I'm not allowed to tell you. I'm supposed to focus on getting you used to using your new body properly so that you can function without any issues. Luna said nothing and folded her arms across her bare chest while staring at her maker coldly. Nadine Broken Bar, tell me right now, what is going on? I've been sworn to secrecy. Real ones don't break the code. Nadine. Fine, the vampire said exhaustedly. She started to fiddle with her fingers as she tried to figure out the best way to break the news to Luna. Well, a Broken Bar, as of right now you humans are kind of far Broken Bar fighting against each other? What? Yeah, Broken Bar, it started over here in America, but now it's kind of happening all over the place. It happened a week ago, the day after your body started to transition. Explain. How did this happen? Nadine scratched her cheek as she tried to remember the name of that prison that was all over TV. It started when some terrorist organization broke everyone out. Oh, far Broken Bar. What was it? Haganah Broken Bar, Tadpole Broken Bar, Transylvania Broken Bar, Catharsis Broken Bar. As Nadine tried and failed to explain what was going on, Luna's eyes only got wider and wider with every passing second. Please tell me, a Broken Bar, that you aren't trying to say Tartarusa Broken Bar? Yeah, that's it. You're such a smart girl, my little Nadine. Okay. What is the most discriminated and restricted group within the United States? If you have any sort of political literacy, you would know the answer easily. It's criminals. In today's day and age, criminals are the only people in society who are openly discriminated against with little to no backlash. They are stripped of their right to vote. They become numbers on a printed sheet. Some will endure forced labor, inhuman treatment, substandard living conditions, and they are stuck inside of a box with others just like them as they slowly lose their minds and become accustomed to life inside cells. Even when they get out, they hardly know how to function in society after following the so-called prison rules for months or even years at a time. To make matters worse, getting a job becomes staggeringly difficult, and the only things available to you would be back-breaking labor or flipping burgers and cleaning up shit stains off a bathroom ceiling. Though there are wonderful and inspiring stories about those that rise above the circumstances, this is not the case for everyone in the US, where the prison system is often more focused on punitive measures rather than reform. As a result, most of the inmates of Tartarus knew what kind of future awaited them when or if they were ever released. But when Arias came to free them, they realized they had a chance to turn the whole world upside down before they could be dragged under. Their eagerness resulted in them commencing their first attack with Arias' faction only 2 days after escaping. At first, They destroyed multiple army bases along the east coast and northwest. But that was only a precursor to their true objective, which was to attack the Bureau of Fiscal Services. Any humans inside that responded with violence were immediately killed, while the rest were tied up and left unbothered. Afterwards, Arias and his men uploaded a virus into government servers, corrupting records and eliminating any and all traces of debt for any American, at which point they burned the physical files and thoroughly cleansed all traces. The U.S. Treasury Department was next to see a visit from Arias and his faction, and their fate was much the same. This sparked a national debate over whether or not it was truly beneficial to let Arias and his believers do as they wished, or if they should be stopped entirely. Even humans were starting to think life under his direction might not be so bad, but they were neglecting one simple thing. Arias wasn't shy about dropping bodies. He gave the humans he came across one simple choice: bow or die. Those who chose to fight and open fire were immediately cut down without waiting for another second, and a video was uploaded onto a stream for the whole world to see. It made it clear to many that this man was not acting for the benefit of humans. His main priority would foremost be the blessed, and whatever humans that believed otherwise were overwhelmingly mistaken. Even now, the body count left behind by him was crawling towards 2 million. And yet Arias and his faction were still on the warpath and destroying government buildings and offices all across America. The National Guard and the Army had been deployed, effectively shutting down parts of the country altogether and forcing evacuations. But even now a broken bar, things didn't look good, with Arias and his followers running out of opposition to get in their way. A broken bar, many were starting to flee the country, or even brace themselves for a new regime built on the ashes of humanity. The only hope the world seemed to have were the blessed, who weren't alright with Arias' needless killing, and were desperately trying to stop him alongside the government's remaining forces. After Luna heard everything, she wiped her face of tears as she pulled her body out of bed and went to her closet. "Nadine, I'm only going to ask you this once. Where is my man, and where are my friends?" Fiddling with her fingers uncomfortably, Nadine realized that she would already be in trouble for snitching, so there was no longer any use for being tight-lipped. As she said a silent apology to Malaki and the others, she switched on the TV and showed Luna the live broadcast. Pandemonium. That was the only word that could possibly be used to describe the scene outside of a naval base in Miami, Florida. Fires were raging in the streets, cars were left abandoned, and buildings were either already destroyed or on the verge of coming down within a few seconds. Two groups were engaged in a heated struggle that had been going on for hours already. On one side, Arias and his followers were adorned in white robes and masks that concealed their identities, except for the convicts who were uninterested in hiding themselves, and left their faces exposed in an effort to make a statement. They flung their powers with reckless abandon, all at the heavily armed military that currently had them under siege. The military was not alone in this battle, as there were a small number of blessed sprinkled into their numbers who were evening the odds with their own dramatic firepower. Some were engaging in hand-to-hand combat, while others were seemingly competing to see who was in possession of the most destructive powers. Since firearms could not be used at the risk of collateral damage to the blessed fighting alongside them, the army unveiled their newest project. To combat Arias and his faction, each soldier in the army had been given newly designed camouflaged tactical armor and energy weapons powered by broken shards of mana stones. These weapons were more than enough to cut through the flesh of the blessed without much difficulty, and it raised some questions about just how long the government had been keeping these weapons hidden. Among the battlefield, there were a few individuals who truly stood out from the rest. One was a pink-haired girl with matching eyes who wore a black tactical gear with long sleeves and a moon symbol across her back. To hide her identity, she wore a black and silver mask that covered her nose and mouth. Her powers worked rather strangely and left many not understanding what she was doing. She would make simple gestures with her hands and 4 or 5 of the enemy opposition would go down screaming before she shot them with the stun guns she'd grabbed from the armory. Beside her, there was a woman wearing a similar outfit, only her mask was black and gold instead of silver. Even with her voluptuous and curvy frame, She did not look out of place here on this battlefield and was even doing a rather splendid job of making herself useful while still keeping an eye out for her daughter. "You're doing amazing, sweetie." "Mom, you're embarrassing me." "That is one of my divine privileges as your birth giver." "Focus on the bad guys." All right, but I want to take pictures later." "Mama." "Watch carefully." Put on a determined expression beneath her mask and started picking out targets one by one so as not to affect nearby friendlies with her powers. Her eyes became a bright silver color and she snapped her fingers discreetly. At her command, the bodies of members of the opposition started to drop like flies, and they lie on the ground awkwardly as they snored peacefully. Serena raised her guns to paralyze the men and ensure that they stayed down, but her mother quickly raised a hand to stop her. "It's all right, dear. I can keep them down without you having to stun them." Serena did a quick head count and realized that there were over 50 men lying on the ground, and her mother seemed to have absolutely no problem keeping each of them asleep. "Since when can you do something like this?" "I thought that holding just a couple of people down made you tired." "It did before, but it's weird. I feel like I can do a lot more now." "Isn't that great?" Found her daughter a few feet away, squatting down and drawing circles in the dirt. "This shit sucks. A broken bar. All I can do is give a couple bastards the illusion of pain. A broken bar. I wanna get power-ups from having sex to a broken bar." "Why, you are too young for that, and you have no reason to believe that is the cause for my new strength," she cried. On another part of the battlefield, a second familiar group of girls were laying waste to the opposition. Bianca and Anna were working in tandem, accounting for each other's blind spots and ensuring that neither of them suffered so much as a scratch. As Anna fired a blast of pure kinetic energy from her palms, Bianca waved her hand and melted an icy projectile that was aimed at her. "Thanks, B. If you're really grateful, let me sleep on top of Mal tonight." Anna rolled her eyes as she laughed underneath her mask. She prepared a sharp-tongued retort when out of the corner of her eye she saw a mangled tank flying overhead on a direct collision course for Bianca. B. Anna quickly sprouted a pair of red wings from her back and moved behind Bianca in the blink of an eye. Throwing out her fist, she punched the airborne tank as hard as she possibly could and obliterated it from existence. Boom. Sighing, Anna brushed off her knuckles as she looked over her shoulder to check on Bianca's condition. "You all right?" Instead of finding a smiling and grateful friend, she was instead met by a pair of folded arms and slightly poked out lip. "Damn it, does this mean that you're not going to let me sleep on top of him now?" "Well, I don't owe you any more, do I?" "The battle isn't over yet. I'm going to save you if it's the last thing I do." "A broken bar. You want my life to be in mortal danger so that you can wake up with our man's morning wood against your stomach." "When you say it like that you make me sound horrible." "It's true though." "A broken bar. Stop making it seem like I'm the only crazy one in our relationship." "I have no idea what you're talking about." Anna said lied. "You should duck, by the way." "Huh?" Anna's eyes glowed red before two beams of destructive energy cut down a man who was rushing at the young lady from behind. "That's two for me, fuck." Amongst the ruin of the naval base, there were only two blessed on the side of humanity who were fighting against the New Day faction. However, these two were arguably the most dangerous on the battlefield. One was an unrecognizable girl with chocolate skin and thick and curly gray hair paired with deep black eyes. Like a few other women here today, her face was covered by a mask to conceal her identity and gave her an alluring sense of mystique. In her hands she wielded no weapons, and instead attacked her opponents with the devastating power of wind that seemed inexhaustible. The man opposite her was a significantly more well-known figure, even with his mask. Malachi Saint whirled the two hand-held spears in his grasp as he cut down opponents left and right as they came for his sister. Though this was a battlefield, the two of them were having a normal conversation amidst the chaos as if they were seated at a coffee shop. "So you like Rose? Are shredded chicks your type now?" Mal asked with a laugh. I don't know, our mom's got my head all messed up," she cried. Using her blessing from Isis, Aubrey tossed a ball of golden power at a concrete pillar lying a few feet away from her, and watched as it turned into a living, breathing snake that could swallow a manhole. "You should go for it." "She's fine and I don't really think Aisha would mind that much," Hell, she might be more excited than you. One of Malachi's arms started to course with black lightning, and the other a golden flame. He stabbed both weapons into the ground, and a loud explosion like that of a car bomb rang out, flinging his white-robed enemies into the air. It's not about that, Malachi. You should definitely know that, seeing as how you also have girls you're slightly interested in who you aren't dating. Malachi said nothing, but Aubrey knew by the way that he flinched momentarily that she'd hit the nail on the head. That's what I thought. Our loyalty is all we have in this life. We can't just run off chasing every pretty face that we see whenever we feel like it. It would make our love and our vows meaningless. Malachi smiled wryly under his mask as he continued fighting. It was a strange feeling to hear your sister suddenly become so mature out of the blue, especially when she had spent the past few years in such a vulnerable place. However, a broken bar, he did not dislike it at all. All that he wished for was for her to keep growing and learning until she became the wonderful human being he knew she was destined to become. Distracted by happy thoughts, he kissed the moment where a hand suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and gave him a hard smack that sent him flying. Bang! Malachi. Aubrey watched as her brother crashed through a ruined cement wall and was buried underneath a mountain of rubble. She turned around to attack the culprit, and yet her blood ran cold when she saw who it was. It was noisy out here, so I came to take a look. A broken bar that was the biggest fly I've ever seen in my life, though. There is a man that the whole world knows of, yet doesn't like to talk about. When he appeared 3 years ago, he burst onto the scene as an up-and-coming member of Ragnarok who had quite a few eyes on him. But within a month, he was bored of that life and went on an unprecedented spree of destruction. No one could say why he finally snapped. Some think it was the pressure from the media to remain good despite the way that they tried to portray him. Others decided that something like this was to be expected when you considered just whom it was he was blessed by. However, none could deny that regardless of his public image, he was the most powerful blessed the world had ever seen. Had he not voluntarily entered into Tartarus, none would even think of Alex Heller or Morgan Creed deserving the title of the strongest. After all, neither of them could ever hope to beat this man. Stepping out of the ruined naval base was a tall man of around 6'2". He looked to be an older gentleman, with salt and pepper hair and a nicely groomed goatee. Like the one who had blessed him, he wore a dark suit with gold rings adorned on every finger, and had a pair of leather wingtip shoes on his feet. His eyes were a dull shade of gold, as if they had long lost their luster or perhaps had it forcibly taken away. He yawned casually and showed a smile full of perfect white teeth that were as blinding as the sun. Instinctively, Aubrey backed away as she stared at this man with a sense of unbridled fear. This was Kendrick Gerard, former member of Ragnarok and the man blessed by the devil himself. Also known as the world's #1 criminal. Shit. My hand stings a bit. A broken bar. Did I not hit a bug after all? He muttered. He noticed a pair of eyes on his figure and turned around to find a young girl in a mask staring at him. Aren't you a little young for civil wars? I swear, parents these days just let their kids run rampant. A broken bar. With shaking arms, Aubrey held up her hands as she willed her powers to do something or anything at all. She felt fatigue like nothing she had ever known before, and a bright green tornado was created from the very air above their heads. The tornado was about to touch down right on top of her opponent when he tilted his head and looked at her like she was a nuisance. What are you doing? Stop that. With a swat of his hand, Kendrick easily dispelled Aubrey's tornado into a harmless gust of wind and proceeded to lecture her as he ran his hands through his hair. Look kid, call your parents and get out of here. This isn't the place for you. Aubrey was fighting to remain upright on her feet after creating a tornado for the first time, and just spat out the first excuse she could think of. My mom a broken bar. She isn't the kind of person I can just call whenever I want. Kendrick seemed to connect with that statement on some level and he nodded his head in understanding. I get that. A broken bar. My mom was a deadbeat too. What? Boom. At that moment, Malachi came flying out of the rubble with his claw poised to strike. As soon as he came within striking distance, Kendrick looked up lazily as he held out 2 fingers on both hands. With the greatest of ease, Kendrick stopped all of Malachi's momentum and brought his body to a complete standstill. Malachi immediately gritted his teeth in frustration as he tried to push his weapons into his opponent's flesh but failed miserably all the same. This was Kendrick's ability that had made him so widely feared and the reason he was seen as the strongest. Absolute force manipulation. Provided that Kendrick already understands the inner workings of an external force completely, he is free to manipulate that force for any effect he desires. Like earlier when he dialed back the wind pressure of Aubrey's attack until it was a light breeze, or even now where he was siphoning away the kinetic energy that Mal needed for strength and momentum. There was also a similar occurrence in the past where he tapped the ground with his foot and manipulated the impact waves until they were at the seismic level, setting off an earthquake and killing everything inside the gate within in a few moments. However, using this ability could be very draining for him as it wasn't a power that mortals were supposed to have. The more dramatic and complex his feats are, the more tired he becomes as a result. In addition, using his powers on more than one force at once was also a no-go, as it would give him a terrible headache and cause his nose to bleed severely. That's weird. A broken bar. Really feel like I've seen you before. A broken bar. Are you a porn star by chance? He asked. Malachi thought up all manner of smart-mouthed retorts, but he unfortunately couldn't say any of them. His mind was much too preoccupied on another strange feeling that was taking place within his body, or more accurately, the gnawing sense of need that he was accumulating, though he wasn't sure exactly what this sense of need was stemming from. "No, a broken bar," he muttered. "So that wasn't you with Sarah J., Zakira, Diamond Jackson and Havana Ginger?" Malachi's nose crinkled up in disgust. "What are you, in middle school?" "I'm a grown man with needs and fetishes, and what I do in my free time is my own personal business." "Do I honestly look like a porn star to you?" "A broken bar." "A broken bar, fucking jackass." For a brief moment, Kendrick's eyes glowed a bright red before they inevitably changed back to gold. "That's rude." Boom. Manipulating the sound waves from his own words, Kendrick created a sonic attack that ripped through Mal's armor and phony skin like they were made of toilet tissue. Lucifer's chosen expected blood and guts to fly freely through the air, but instead there was only a strange black sludge. "Gross, a broken bar. The hell kind of dart did you have?" Kendrick muttered. Suddenly, the black substance started to pool back together, and became a dark galaxy in the shape of a man. Finally, Kendrick seemed to remember exactly where he knew this man from. And it wasn't Brez's. "Oh right, a broken bar. You're the one he told me about." "You guys are real tricky things, aren't you?" As his hair floated upwards of its own volition, Malachi clutched his face as he finally realized what the desperate need from earlier was. "I want to eat him, a broken bar. I want to eat him so fucking bad, a broken bar." As Kendrick watched Malachi double over while clutching his head, he raised a brow in confusion. His powers certainly didn't have any way to affect avatars due to their abnormal body condition. The energy that made them tick was so insanely complex and profound that he couldn't hope to understand it yet, making Malachi something like his natural enemy. He'd already learned his lesson about fighting blessed like this after his challenge against Arias had gone horribly awry. So why did he look like he was in pain? Suddenly, Malachi looked up at Kendrick and he felt a weird force flowing off of him. This one was unlike anything he had ever felt before and even felt a bit alien in origin. "You've got a lot more ticks than that other guy, don't you?" "I wonder why that is." However, Malachi did not answer Kendrick's question no matter what, leaving him to wonder just what had changed and what exactly Mal was. As Bianca and Anna continued their competition, both girls had arrived at a staggering 3-3 record. The last to make a save was Bianca, who was admittedly taking this competition more seriously than her opponent. "I'm so close." "Just one more," she said aggressively. "We're running out of enemies here, B. Just give it up for the day." "Never. I want that position." "Your turn is coming up tomorrow anyway. Why can't you just wait?" "I want to be greedy." Anna rolled her eyes as she tried to stop herself from smiling. "Really, should I just let her win at this point?" she wondered. As she considered this, she felt a cold feeling in the back of her mind that stemmed from one of her connections. Confused about why this could possibly be happening, She turned to Bianca for answers only to find her standing around motionlessly, a petrified look on her face. We have to get to Malisha Broken Bar like right now. This is him? What's going on? It's like inside the last gate. He's slipping again. Both girls immediately put their competition on hold as they started running through the battlefield at an inhumane speed. Along the way, they slung aside any enemies without a care as they drew closer to his position. Both girls suddenly looked up and found floating in the sky keeping pace with the girls as they ran. What's happened? We don't know. We've been separated this whole time. He ran off with Aubrey earlier. As the three girls crossed the rubble of the ruined naval base, they found themselves staring at Malachi's back in his true appearance, with Aubrey and a man in a dark suit standing opposite him making a somewhat lazy expression. Babe, what's wrong? As the three girls landed around Malachi, Kendrick finally noticed their presence. Oh, newbies? I can hear your heartbeats, so I know you're not like Hema Broken Bar. You're all really hot though. Kid is a lucky bastard, I'll give him that. Kendrick casually slicked his hair back as he tried to make a favorable impression. At that moment, the last bit of sanity that Mal had been holding onto was yanked into the darkness and he immediately lunged at the unlucky adversary. It was just a compliment. Don't be tender. Boom. Kendrick tapped his foot on the ground once again and manipulated the rubble to create a wall of spikes that stood in the way of himself and Malachi. He waited and waited for the sound of some sort of collision to take place, but nothing of that sort ever came. He raised a brow in confusion before he felt something stirring underneath him, and felt something grab his ankle a second later. As soon as he looked down, he saw that the ground had turned completely black like it was dyed by ink. A single black hand with stars and nebulas embedded within was sticking up from the abyss, and holding on to him tight enough to break the joints. Phew! A hard yank sent Kendrick tumbling into the void beneath him, alarming everyone nearby. The first lieutenant is gone. He's actually been taken. Fall back, now. As the remnants of the New Day began to panic, Bianca, Anna, and ran towards the sea of dark shadows in the ground that was quickly starting to close up. Where are you guys going? Aubrey cried. We need to calm your brother down before he loses his mind and eats that guy. Bianca explained. What? No time to explain. Make the time please. Aubrey started to run behind the girls and followed them as they dove into the dwindling pool of darkness. Once inside, they fell into an endless abyss of shadows that they had no idea how to navigate. They simply fell freely through the air as if they were skydiving. This place is a lot weirder than the last time I came here, Anna yelled. You've been down here before? Aubrey asked. Why yay, I thought it would be romantic if we're Broken Bar, you know. Bianca, was it? I am also curious about that. Why are you also fucking horny? Aubrey was on the verge of tearing her perfect curly hair out. We can't help it if we have needs. Bullshit, you can't. Finally, the girls saw a few stars appear out of nowhere, or at least they believed them to be stars at first. Upon closer inspection, the group realized that they were portals. Billions upon billions of portals that all reflected different parts of the world where shadows were present. How are we supposed to find the one my brother went through? Aubrey asked. Focusing on the connection the girls shared with Malachi, they were able to come to a conclusion rather quickly. Hold on to me, Anna yelled. Once the girls grabbed onto the tattooed young woman, she sprouted a familiar pair of red wings and started to maneuver around the shadowy domain, searching for a specific portal. Hold on, babe, just keep your head. Your girls are coming for you. On Morgan Creed's private island, Malachi and Kendrick came tumbling out of the shadow domain while throwing blows at one another. The two of them hit the ground and caused an explosive collision in the dirt. When they were separated, Kendrick picked himself up from the ground and wiped off his black suit that was now covered in dirt. What a fucking mess, a Broken Bar. This is Armani, you know. A blood-curdling roar shook all of the trees and terrified every living thing on the island. Even Kendrick was no longer aloof as his dull gold eyes tried to process what he was seeing in front of him. Malachi was growing pitch-black flesh out of thin air, and was steadily growing into a monstrous entity. Dark black skin, claws the size of knives, and 4 massive tails that ended with snake heads and seemed to have minds of their own. A single mouth filled with crooked and dangerously sharp teeth opened wide, and let out something that sounded like an unholy laugh. Unsurprisingly, Kendrick forgot all about his dirty suit. Fanya broken bar. I guess I've got bigger problems.